Hello, welcome to the latest episode of RetroCollect FM. I'm your host as usual, Chris. Joining me as usual is Adam.
Hello.
And we have with us a special guest this week, which is Just Add Water's Stewart Gilray.
Evening, morning, welcome, whatever.
Pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you for having me. And I think it's one of those strange situations which probably Adam can explain better than I can, really, I think.
Yeah, well, Adam, if you want to explain how you two met.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny one, really, that goes hand in hand with retro gaming, to say the least. I happened to be at one of the local car boot sales, stumbled upon the Amiga game Marvin's Marvelous Adventure, and before I even had a chance to ask how much it was, I had the guy selling it saying to me, "I made that game." So that was Stu. Yeah. And one thing led to another. We were chatting away for hours, and before I know it, I was popping around to his house to buy some prototype Amiga software off him, which was quite something. So, yeah, and then 8 years later, here we are now, chatting away again.
Yeah, I mean, it's strange, actually, because at that time, my wife and I decided to basically sell up and go travelling around the world. Because I'd taken a couple of years out of the games industry, and we thought, let's have some new adventure here. So we'd redecorate the house and stuff up to bottom, put it on the market, and we were doing car boot sales to get rid of stuff we didn't think we needed anymore, safe putting in storage. And that was where it came from. So at that point in time, I was doing NACOL in games industry, but with this, at least a 1 year adventure ahead of me of escaping the confines of the UK, then I think probably about 3-4 months after we spoke or met, and my wife fell on pregnant. And,
no!
We didn't go anywhere.
Oh no! That's good as well. Obviously, you have a baby.
That's right. So. Well, it's good because, indeed, yeah, and literally, it was during my wife's pregnancy we decided on the idea that I should probably get back into making some money again. And the idea was that I wanted to get back into games, which I'd taken a couple of years away from, knowing that I'd done it since the age of 17, 18. And that's where it all kind of started, I guess. Started Just Add Water. Literally 2 weeks after my son Elliot was born.
That's
so
cool.
Yeah,
definitely
exciting times.
Okay, so for those of you who aren't familiar with Stuart, would you want to give explain like your first steps into the video game world?
Well, first steps of being as a player back in the in 1982-83 with a Sinclair Spectrum, as a pure. Parents buy you Specky for Christmas, play games with your mates and stuff, that's about it, But then towards the end of 84, 85, my friend Richard and I started making games. And then I remember our very first one we designed on the Spectrum was called Heavy Metal Harry, which was a silly little platform game, kind of like a cross between Monty Mole, etc. And something we couldn't quite work out what it was. But we never got into finishing it off because we ended up getting Ataris and stuff, Atari STs. Then we started working on an adventure game, which we'll probably get to later on possibly. And that was it really. It's a case of not only did I like playing them, I thought, well, how does this work? I wasn't really much good at anything else at the time, so I thought, I'll just try programming and stuff, and it kind of went out from there really.
That's something like for a minute with when I was younger as well. I used to buy. The magazines for BBC Micro where you'd get the codes for how to learn how to code onto it. And I thought it would be hilarious so that when my dad would use it, I would actually get it to pretend to go into turning it off. So whenever my dad would press stuff, it would always turn off, and my dad would just get infuriated by what was going on, and I'd just be laughing, thinking it's hilarious. But the main reason I wanted it was because I wanted to see Samantha Fox naked all the time. So that's how I really wanted to get in. That's how I really wanted to learn how to code stuff, because I was like, there was 1 week they said, okay, next 1 month they were like, next month we will reveal the codes for playing Samantha Fox where she's always topless. And I was like, wow, this is going to be amazing. I'm going to have to learn how to do this.
And the thing is being an adult now and being a kid then is of course they used to call them pokes, didn't they? So you could poke a certain address. Ironic, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway. How things have changed, eh?
Adam, do you want to take on some questions?
Sure. Yeah. So obviously you mentioned Richard here. I mean, did the two of you ever think that you'd be ended up creating, big budget releases that the whole world would be enjoying?
Well, I don't know. This is a really twee, but we kind of thought probably the same way musicians think, and that is that We're just doing the fun of it right there and then. We didn't think about any kind of future in it. We weren't quite believing our parents, just saying, "Oh, it's a fad." But at the same time, we didn't think we'd be doing it as a job or etc. and anything like that. So we were just doing it for the there and then. We didn't think about tomorrow. Richard was going to art university or college in Dundee, and I wasn't. I was, trying to carve away in to find contacts in the industry at the time, and then that was it. There's no real set plan. I mean, we're both living in Aberdeen. And there's no industry up there at all. I mean, we were the only developers in that part of Scotland, completely. The nearest to us was, at the time, was DMA Design in Glasgow and in Dundee, and then that was literally it in late 80s that we knew about. So there's 5 of us. Yeah. And that was where it kind of started, and we went from there. Richard eventually went on to do bigger and better things in the States, working for Bethesda, and came back to the UK. But we never thought about it. We just literally took it one day at a time.
Cool. So, am I right in saying that Spidersoft or Enigma Developments was your first breakthrough in the video game world?
The thing is, Spidersoft, as we called it then, we started off when we were in school, in your secondary school, you're 14, 15 years old, writing games. What's a big, cool name for a company? I know, Spidersoft, yeah. And then Richard did this cool little letterhead, which I think I actually showed to you, Adam. I can't remember if I did or not. And when we did that, when I started taking things a bit more seriously, when we started doing the game Lost Soul, we came up with a better name, and that was it was ESD. And the reason it became ESD because we were just called Enigma at the time. But we discovered there's a company in Harrogate, of all places, called Enigma Variations. So we had to hastily change our name, and we came up with Enigma Software Developments. So they had this ESD logo, which we used, and we did 3 or 4 projects in the late 90s, late 80s, early 90s, mostly for 21st Century Entertainment, or Hughes Consultants, as they used to be called. So we had a few ESD logos on some of those stuff. We did some stuff with EA, more specifically, we did introduction sequence for Powermonger. And it's a really weird tale in this one, which I didn't know at the time, Adam, but you might think hysterical now, is that when we did the Amiga and ST versions of Powermonger Introduction, we sent the finished versions off to EA and all the source assets, because they wanted to do a SNES version. The SNES version was programmed by a guy called Stephen Caslin, who's now the CTO of JAW.
Oh, right.
But we didn't know that at the time. Steve and I met in 2000 at Runecraft, where he was lead programmer on the engine at the time, and even then, we spent 9 months, being friendly and stuff, and getting to know each other and hanging out and things. But we didn't mention it, and we literally only about 2 years ago, we sat in the office one day, and I went, "Yeah, we did this introduction sequence for Powermonger." He looked at me, "You what?" I said, "Yeah, we did the Amiga introduction for Powermonger." He says, "You kidding?" I said, "Why?" He says, "I did the SNES version." I says, "Was there a SNES version of the game?" He said, "Yeah, look." YouTube, and there was our intro we did in the Amiga and ST on a SNES that Steve had done the coding for. It's
brilliant.
just bizarre. So it's like one of those it's 20 years later things, and the 2 people who did different versions never knew we did different versions, met and are not only working together but on a business together. So it's quite ironic, really.
Small world.
Yeah. So that was fun.
So just before we get ahead, though, I just wanted to ask about Lost Soul, which is obviously an unreleased Atari ST game that you worked on. Do you have anything to tell us about that? Because obviously there's not really any information out there on it.
Well, we did this game based on ST Adventure Creator from Incentive, called Lost Soul, and it was. God, I'm trying to remember. I've got a version upstairs somewhere, and I've got design documents in the house for it. But for the life, I can't remember what the whole thing was about. If memory serves right, it's almost like a Mario Princess Peaches thing, where basically you're in the game. It's an adventure game, text adventure game, like the Magnetic Scrolls games. Your girlfriend, fiance, when they call her in the game, she gets kidnapped, and you've basically got to rescue her. And we kind of took inspiration from the Magnetic Scrolls games. But because we used Stack to make it, it was kind of limited. So I got friendly with one of the guys at Incentive, and he probably doesn't remember this, but he used to send me code drops of the next version of Stack. So instead of just having a pre-built binary we worked with, we actually had the source for it. So I could go into it and stuff. I ended up plugging in Dave Whitaker's music system into it and that sort of stuff, and other bits and bobs just to make better music come out of it. Oh. And then we ended up putting a mod player into it as well on the ST. Because, an adventure game isn't very processor intensive. So you managed to get a mod player in there to play some 4-channel mod music and stuff. So we did that. We signed up with a company called MPH Software to publish it, based in Norwich. And it was going all right. They got us the gig doing the Powermonger introduction as well, which was nice. But we'd probably about 4 weeks away from finishing the game. And ST Format wanted to review it, so we sent a version to ST Format, and they gave us 78%, which, it's not amazing, but it's definitely not, rubbish either. So we were pretty tough for that. And the Christmas special that year, they had 10 different games on the cover, different screenshots from these games, and we had 5 of our game screenshots on the cover. It's like, wow, we've done really awesome. And then, so roll forward to the beginning of January either 89 or 1990, I can't remember which it was, and got a phone call from a law firm in Norwich just saying, yes, we're the receivers for MPH Software. We see you're one of the creditors for £5,000. Just to let you know, the company got into receivership this morning. Oh no. Fudge. And it never came out. It never came out. And the guy who ran the company rang me up a week later and said, I'm really sorry. I'm a nervous wreck. I'm frightened people are going to knock my door down looking for money. I can't handle this anymore. I just want to give me my rights back. So we got the rights back from them, and we did. Richard was at university in Dundee at the time, and I just got a programming job externally for Houston Consultants. And I literally moved down to Lancashire to do this contract for 6 months. In fact, the day I actually moved to Lancashire, I just turned 21 that day, so that's 1991. We just never got into finishing, removing the MPH stuff from it and publishing it ourselves. Back in those days, you couldn't publish yourselves really. You either gave it away for free or you gave it away shareware, but you had to write a special version to be shareware, and we just didn't get a chance to do it. So it's a shame really, because the game we pretty much enjoyed it. I think there's 64 locations in it and 50 visual locations, which, remember back in those days, you'd have like a mansion in some games with 20 rooms, but just one picture for the mansion. So we kind of went mad and did all this artwork for it. It was fun. It was a fun project for an introduction, to 2 guys doing it themselves all those years ago, with no support from anybody else really, apart from financial every so often. And the real, premise being that we were going to get 55% royalty because we didn't ask for any money up front from MPH. So it was, apart from this one final, submission, if you like, submission payment of $5,000. But it was tough times, but good times.
Yeah, well, just for the record, given that you've got the rights to it, I know for a while you'd be very, very the community would love to see that game. Should you ever be able to release it out on the internet accidentally?
Well, yeah. The thing is, I would be honoured to release it again. But the thing is, I've not got an ST anywhere to try. I think I've got an emulator somewhere. The Steam emulator, which I could probably get working again. Maybe try and build the final version of it. But you're talking 22 years ago since the last time I looked at it. So I might be a little bit rusty. That was fun as well.
Well, if you did want to bring the game back now, right? There is a console coming that you can self-publish on, and has like a little touchpad, which would be perfect for a text adventure.
What's that?
I think it's called a Xbox, PlayStation something.
Yeah.
And adventure games are all the rage at the moment.
Yeah, but more like graphical adventures rather than straight, text adventure, I would have thought.
Yeah, I guess Walking Dead's more of a graphic one, isn't it, rather than a text?
Yeah, you're not typing a keyboard going, walk east, open door, door is locked, use key to open door. Yeah.
I miss those games.
They're so frustrating to play now, though.
Yeah, did you guys play The Cave? I know it's a bit left field tangent on this one.
I've played the demo from Double Fine, but I've not got round to downloading the full game yet. Just the demo didn't grab me enough.
I kind of loved it, but I thought some of the puzzles are too left field and obscure that I just ended up using walkthroughs on YouTube to get past some bits because it's just like, what?
Yeah, because I found the demo to be tricky. So I was like, and I wasn't used to that because usually I'm really good at adventure games. I love them. So yeah, and I was bit disappointed by it in the end because I didn't feel it. I love the whole idea of this cave being like the character.
Yeah.
Very Maniac Mansion style. I love that, but I don't know, the gameplay behind. I think the gameplay got in the way of the game, which.
Yeah, I know what you mean by that. I think Ron was trying to hark back to the old days a bit too much, possibly made it a little bit too obscure for today's players.
Yeah, I think
which
so.
Is something we discovered with Gravity Crash, which we can talk about in a bit as well. But yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Brilliant, cool. Well, obviously you've talked about your EA days as well. Do you want to kind of tell us how you ended up at 21st Century Entertainment?
To go back to the EA days, I mean, what was really weird with that is we after we did the Powermonger introduction sequence, I got a call one day from John Roberts at EA. I don't know where I think he's in Australia now. Saying, "Are you the Stewart Gilray who did the introduction for Powermonger?" Yeah, cool. We'd love you to do the introduction sequence for Birds of Prey from Argonaut. Oh, okay. So we ended up doing this ray-traced dogfight on Amiga, pre-baked on a whole disc, and off you go. And I remember at the time, I don't know if you remember this, Chris, there's a magazine called Computer Gaming Weekly.
Yeah.
It was like a newsprint type thing, came out every week.
Yeah.
They reviewed Birds of Prey, and they decided to review the game and the intro separately. So those days, their reviews are like out of 5. And the left hand of the double page spread was the game, and the right hand was intro. The game got 3 out of 5, and the intro got 4 out of 5. Rumor has it Jez San wasn't particularly happy about that, and the message from John was, "Yeah, don't ever email Jez again. He's not really happy because you did what? No, we didn't do it deliberately. It just happened. You guys could have said no, but you took it."
Was Dylan Cuthbert working there at the time as well? Argonaut.
Actually, that's a good point. I don't know. I have to ask him because Dylan and I are quite good friends, so I'll have to ask him. Actually, he must have been. So that must have been what? 1990?
Yeah, he must have been, mustn't he? Because he started there when he was like 15 or something, didn't he? So.
Yeah. Oh shit! I'll have to ask. I'll have to email and ask him. So I'll do. I don't want to finish speaking to him. So we did that. Then we did. Pete Molyneux wanted us to do another intro for us. We did Populous 2 introduction, and it was finished. They paid us for it. And then EA turned around and said that they didn't want to have a 2-disc game anymore. They wanted to do a 1-disc game to save costs. So the introduction for Populous 2 was binned at the last minute.
Oh, no.
Never mind, These things happen. And then after
they're probably worried you get a really good review for it and not the game.
Probably, yeah. And that's the last thing we did for. Oh, that's not the last thing we did. Richard actually did the original cover artwork for Syndicate.
Really?
Which was never used. And this is the really weird, bizarre thing about it. Do you guys see have you seen the movie Equilibrium?
Yeah.
Do you remember the cover poster for that with the 2 guys in the trench coats and the glasses and the guns?
Yeah.
That was Richard's painting for Syndicate in 1991.
Oh, wow. That was amazing.
Somebody must have seen that and literally taken it to use it. Cause I know the picture was used in a couple of places. I think it was used on the manual cover in the States or something like that. It wasn't used as the box cover in Europe in the end. So somebody probably saw the inside cover of the manual in the States and went, "That's awesome, let's just use that for this movie poster idea."
Yeah, because Syndicate's box art was not nice in the end.
It was a close into the face, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Richards was literally these 2 guys in trench coats with guns and glasses on. Which was weird, because I remember when I first saw the Equilibrium poster, I was literally driving down the street and went, "What the? That looks really... oh my god." Then I noticed the movie name and said, "No." So I rang Richard and said, "Have you seen Equilibrium poster?" He goes, "Don't fucking talk to me about the Equilibrium poster." Ah, okay. So yeah, but that was it. That was the end of the EA days, which was, I guess, we stopped working with them mid-late 91. Because I at that point had decided, I was offered this programming job by 21st Century, Houston at the time, to do Rubicon on the Atari ST. They had a guy doing the Amiga version, a guy called Keith McMurtry, who did Stormlord on the Amiga and ST and Mega Drive. But Keith, his ST ports were literally just straight ports from Amiga code. He's more of an Amiga guy. So I ended up living in his house for 3 months doing the ST version of Rubicon while he was doing the Amiga version of Rubicon. And then probably, I don't know, maybe 3 months or 2 months into that, 21st Century Houston went tits up. So Keith decided to get a real job away from games, and is still at the same company now. He's the managing director of a company called Thorstons, who do printing software, or software for the printing industry, which is just really weird and left field. So he gave up that, and I ended up taking over the Amiga and ST versions as well. And then I got another friend of mine, Andy Buchanan, strange enough, to help me with that. So Andy and I spent the next 6 months doing the ST and Amiga versions of Rubicon. So January 92, we were finishing off the game, but that whole month, 2 months, leading from the end of 91 through 92 was horrible, because I ended up working for 3 days straight, then sleeping for 12 hours, then working another 3 days straight. For that's like 2 weeks or so I was doing that. I ended up working every day apart from probably 1 o'clock onwards on Christmas Eve, and having Christmas Day off, and then back to work on Boxing Day. And I didn't have New Year off at all. And then literally halfway through January, we heard about the new Amiga 1200 with its 1 megabyte of memory, continuous memory, as opposed to having 512 regular memory and 512 fast memory. And Houston decided they wanted to have the game to work properly, and because we ended up cutting some things out for half meg games, because we just couldn't fit all the game into it on the 512. So if you had a 512 and 512 with fast, we ended up having some stuff stored in fast memory and then copied to regular memory for running it. And then Houston said he wanted to have us be compatible with the 1200. So I ended up, no word of a lie, at 9:30 in the morning, I got this phone call after being awake for 2.5 days saying, "Oh, you need to change the game now so it works on the 1 megabyte of memory in the Amiga 1200. We'll send you up one next week." And I just sat there, got off the phone and started crying. I want this project to be finished. I was 22 years old. I'd had enough. I've been working 2 weeks solidly in a stupid fashion, which I've never done again since. And it just got to me. I just had enough. That was it. I broke down, basically. Then I took 2 days off at that point. Then the Amiga arrived probably on the Thursday or Friday of that week, and then I spent the next week and a half finishing them off, and then we were in replication by early mid-February, thankfully, and that was it done. It was a huge weight off the shoulders. But yeah, so that was the Houston days, and I ended up taking something like, oh God, a year or so out working some other projects. I've worked on some stuff for Grand Slam Entertainment, which I was never credited for.
What might those be then that you weren't credited for? Now's your chance to tell the world.
I was always slightly dubious about this project. They had a project they're working on, an audio tool. I can't remember what it was called now. It's done by some German guys, and they'd basically, Grand Slam are publishing it in UK, but the Germans refused to do the changes for a UK keyboard. So Grand Slam asked me to hack it. So I apologise to the German developers where I wasn't aware of what I was doing at that age of 22. But yeah, I ended up basically reverse engineering this Amiga XE, fixing it to work on a UK keyboard with UK language, English language, and send it back up to Grand Slam again for a measly sum of £500. Ended up also finishing off a game called Moonfall for 21st Century, which took me about 2 weeks to do, 2 months to do, because they'd fallen out the developer for whatever reason. I don't know what it was. And I ended up finishing off, again unaccredited. But we also started building up contacts like Signitus and stuff at the time, our little band of developers. And one of our guys, Nick, our audio guy, who did the ST version of all the audio for Rubicon, we ended up getting him the gig doing the music for Awesome on the ST from Psygnosis, and a couple of other games on the ST. And the really weird connection here is that Nick, his full name Nick Alderton, he was the son of John Alderton and Pauline Collins, the actors.
Oh, right.
And then there's really tenuous link here is another friend of ours in the group at the time, a guy called Martin Griffiths, who went on to work at EA since. He lived at home in Wales with his parents, but he went to live in London in Nick's place for a month. Didn't realise who his mum and dad were. Saw them almost every day. Didn't click who they were. He went back to Wales, and he was watching some awards with his mum one Sunday night, and he said, "Oh, looks like just like Nick's mum on telly." And Martin's mum turned to him and went, "It is. You've been staying at our house the past, whatever month it was." So yeah,
That's pretty cool.
Them were the days when you just didn't know who you're talking to. Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, there was no Wikipedia then, was there?
No, I mean, that's the thing, I knew who they were. I remember I told my mum, and she was like, "Oh my God, can you get John's autograph?" And I'm not getting John's bloody autograph. Oh God, ask Nick to get his dad's autograph. No, I'm not doing it. I didn't do it because it's like, I'm not doing that. That's cheesy. You know, these people are just people at the end of the day. They're my friend Nick's mum and dad. You know, I don't think of them as actors or else. You know, so that was that. But yeah, so that was 2002, and then early 1992. Sorry, then early 93. I thought I'd better get a job because I was fed up working for other people and being screwed over by being a freelancer at the time, but the company didn't give a rat's ass about you really. And ended up interviewing at Ocean, where I met Gary Bracey the first time, and then interviewing at, where else did I go to? Oh, SCI in London, where they just started working the Lawnmower Man game, which at the time I looked like, I went, my God, that looks horrible. I didn't tell them that, of course. Rob Henderson was the guy who interviewed me there. And then it must have been about a month later, I got a phone call from my mate Barry Simpson, who's at 21st Century, who was the producer on Rubicon when I was doing that for them. He said, "Have you got a job?" I said, "Nah." He said, "Well, we're looking for someone to help me here in the office. Do you want to do it?" I said, "Well, I suppose so." So I took the train down from Aberdeen to Oxford, met Barry, spent a day in the office the next day, and at the end of that day I had a job as an assistant producer.
Cool.
And moved down to Oxford on 23rd of May 1993.
That's pretty good.
And I only remember that is because I was watching the Monaco Grand Prix, and my dad gave me his little portable Casio TV. So I had this little TV with Ariel pointing out the window on the train, and watching the Monaco Grand Prix, and the batteries went flat at 5 laps from the end. I was gutted. So, but yeah, that was that. So that was my first full-time paid a salary job in games anyway. As an employee rather than just doing it myself.
So am I right in thinking that Marvin's Marvelous Adventure would be the first thing you worked on at this point?
That was about the third or fourth. The first thing I worked on was 21st Century were just finishing off Pinball Fantasies and Amiga. So at that time, and this is another weird connection, is that Houston or 21st Century had their own studio in Lincoln called Spidersoft. So, which was quite ironic because we called ourselves Spidersoft all those years before. But Spidersoft in Lincoln, run by a guy called Steve Marsden and another guy called Dave Cook. They worked together at a company, I can't remember what it was, an electronics company in Lincoln in the 80s. And in the spare time, they wrote a game called Technician Ted on the Spectrum, which Houston published. But they got on so well with Andrew that Andrew ended up bankrolling their studio, if you like, at Spidersoft. And they were doing the PC version of Pinball Dreams, and also doing the Pinball Dreams on Game Boy, Game Gear, NES, maybe even SNES. I can't remember if it probably was SNES, and a couple of other platforms at the time. So I ended up being the producer on those projects, as well as when Pinball Fantasies was being done, Digital Illusions in Sweden decided that after playing the early version of Pinball Dreams on PC, they hated it because it wasn't a particularly great version. So they had a contract written up for Pinball Fantasies that said that they would they would supply the PC version or the team to do the PC version of Pinball Fantasies. So I ended up producing the Pinball Fantasies version as well with 4 really crazily, stupidly talented guys in Sweden. Daniel Forsgren, Johan, can't remember his surname, Gabriel Brinkvist, and another guy I can't remember his name from. But they ended up doing PC version of Pinball Fantasies, which was a phenomenal version compared to the PC Pinball Dreams. And we agreed straight away that if Digital Illusions did a third game, that they would do the PC version as well of that. So we finished Fantasies off, and then we got a demo of what was going to be Pinball Illusions from DICE, and that was just one table we got then, and it was slightly different, slight rewrite of some of the core mechanics, the way it worked and stuff, but the tables were better allegedly. So we ended up doing that as well. But in the meantime, we'd started talking to 2 guys. Florian Sauer and his other mate Florian, who did all the graphics for Nebulous 2. And they were doing this little platform game, kind of like Giana Sisters meets Mario meets something else, and that eventually became Marvin's Marvelous Adventure. And we at the time it was just called Marvin. End of. There was no full name to it, and unfortunately, Barry and I had a horrible affliction with Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
I can see where this is going.
Which is why, yes. So if you've ever played the CD32 version of Marvin, whenever he complete a level, you hear this guitar lick playing, and it's marvelous. Well, the guitar was me, and everyone going marvelous was the four of us in the office at 21st Century, and Michael and Barry's office just going marvelous.
That's brilliant.
I can still play it actually, but it's one of those weird things that's stuck in my head since. But I haven't even got a CD32 version of the game anywhere. I don't think I've got any version of the game. I know I had an Amiga version somewhere, which I think you've got now, haven't you?
I have. I can stop by if you want to play it.
No, that's fine. I haven't even got an Amiga anymore, so it wouldn't work. But yeah, so Florian did that, and we were going to do an ST version of it as well. In fact, I was going to do the ST version myself, but we just never got around to doing it. At that point, there was this thing coming along called PlayStation, which we'd heard rumours about since late '93, and also the Atari Jaguar as well, of course. And we ended up. What was funny was when I did Pinball Fantasies on Atari Falcon, it was also done by a friend of mine called Martin McKenzie in Aberdeen. We'd been in this demo scene crew for ages, and Martin still is incredibly clever, but to the point he wrote an assembly system on the ST which could assemble code in like a fraction of a second, where everyone would be using DevPack for years, which you could go set your code assembling, go make a cup of tea or coffee, come back again and just be finishing off. So Martin created this tokenized assembly system. But he's also quite clever with the way the Atari family worked, hardware-wise. So he ended up doing a lot of the visual effects that I couldn't do, like all the horizontal blank splitter kind of code and stuff to allow for multiple color palettes and stuff on the Falcon and things. So he and I ended up doing Pinball Fantasies on the Falcon, and Pinball Dreams. I don't think we actually released Fantasy. I know we released Dreams, but in the meantime, we'd heard about the Jaguar, and Spidersoft were given the role to do Fantasies on the Jaguar for launch. And I was like, I'd rather have somebody who does it who knows the game, B knows Atari architecture. So I suggested that my mate Martin got this job at Spidersoft. So he moved down from Aberdeen to Lincoln to work at Spidersoft. Within 2 weeks of working there, they told him that he couldn't use the original Amiga 68000 code because it'd be pointless. So you'd have to port the PC Dreams code on all the physics and stuff from that, which they believe was a much better physics system, but it just didn't play the same. It was more realistic than the ones in the original Amiga games, and that let it down, frankly. So begrudgingly, Martin ended up finishing off Dreams and Fantasies. Might have been Fantasy actually on the Jaguar, and I ended up going down to Atari several times in Slough. That was strange days because when I knew those guys originally, that building in Slough was top to bottom Atari employees. When I went there the last time, there's only 4 people in that one day. Daryl Still, Alistair Bodden, and a couple other people, and a receptionist. It was like an abandoned warehouse basically, which is quite sad because knowing what I'd been there before, and when it was chock-a-block, seen this just and this was before the Jaguar launch. Excuse me, that was weird. In fact, we ended up running around firing wooden shotguns, plastic bands around each other. It was fun. So we did the Atari version. Jaguar launched in whatever 94, I think it was. It came out. The game got decent reviews, but the system didn't. People start calling it the porta potty and stuff because of the things. It's just very, very, very awkward. So we ended up doing that stuff, and then Marvin, I think, came out in 94, 95. Adam, do you remember?
I thought it was 93, and the CD32 one was 94.
Maybe it was. If it was 93, it was the very end of 93. But the way, Pinball Dreams and Fantasies, Dreams PC and the console versions were finished in August, September 93, and we didn't release until 94. And then Fantasies PC I started on immediately in May 93, and that was ready for releasing November 93, but we held back like 4 or 5 months just to give Dreams PC a bit of a head start. And then we ended up doing Pinball Dreams 2, Battle, which is horrible, and then Pinball World, which is equally horrible, and a bunch of other stuff. I remember we did I think we did Pinball Dreams Deluxe, which had both Pinball Dreams games in it, but we ended up doing a PC CD version of the game. And we decided we wanted to have a proper CD audio track for it. So I ended up going to our recording studio near Cambridge. Was a private studio, in the property of I don't know if you guys know her, a woman called Evelyn Glennie, who's the deaf percussionist. And what's weird was that her husband Greg at the time, he was the one who had the facilities, and I was introduced to him by another guy called Andy Bishop, who was a musician in London we used for some stuff at 21st Century. Andy said, "This my Greg, he's great. He's got his own studio not far from you, but 45-50 miles from you. You should go along and see it. Maybe lay down some guitar tracks for this Pinball Dreams Deluxe thing." So okay, I'll do that. And I got to his house one night, 8:30 at Greg's house, knocked on the door, and the door opens, and there's his wife Evelyn Glennie. I'm thinking this is just too weird, because her music teacher was my music teacher 10 years before. She went to the same secondary school I did on Aberdeenshire called Ellen Academy. And our music teacher was Mr. Park, and Mr. Park was always like, "Oh, Evelyn Glennie, she's the greatest musician in the planet because she's deaf." And she was profoundly deaf in the age of 10, so it's like one of those sort of things. So there's all this weird, sort of bizarre, world is really small type situations going on. And that was kind of the whole pinball point up to that point. And then I think in 94, 95, we started doing Slam Tilt with the guys at UDS, Peter Zetterberg and those guys, and I think I did the Amiga version and PC version of that with them. And it was I think by the time I'd left 21st Century, I'd had enough of pinball.
Yeah,
I was pinballed out.
Yeah, because there's quite a few other ones as well, wasn't there? That we touched upon. Pinball Mania, Pinball World, Absolute Pinball, Pinball Construction Kit. Absolute Pinball
was just the renaming of another game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't a separate title. I think it's the US version of one of them. Oh no, hang on, Absolute Pinball. No, you're all right. Absolute Pinball was by UDS, and we just released that for them in Europe because they've got something else to do in the States, and because of that, we did Slam Tilt. There you go. Yeah, that's I think. Yeah, there's lots of stuff. It's horrible.
And that is a lot of pinball. That's I wouldn't want to just stick with one.
So what was ironic as hell was when I left Runecraft, the first project me and my friend Paul did was a remake of both Dreams and Fantasies on GBA. Because I had the original source code, we just converted the original code straight across to GBA.
Oh, so that was you who did that, right?
Yeah. And got 256 color graphics done by a guy called Mark something, I can't remember, in the States. He did it. Who's a friend of Paul's. So we ended up using he actually did with 24-bit graphics. We ended up using a tool from a Japanese company called WebTech to downgrade to 256 colors, which you couldn't tell the difference from. So we did those in GBA with Ubisoft, but the swines decided that they didn't want to. We finished it in February, they didn't release it until July, because they decided that they wanted to give their own pinball game, Muppet Pinball, a head start. And the weird thing was, Muppet Pinball had 3 tables in it, which weren't even real pinball tables, and they were on 32-bit cards. We had 8 tables on a 4-bit card.
Oh.
Which for the GBA was a massive, because the graphics and music weren't much. So we actually used original Amiga mod files in the GBA. And the ironic thing is, the game actually supported the save memory on the card, but at the last minute, Ubisoft decided to save themselves 50 pence a cartridge and manufactured them without save memory. So you could never actually save your high score in the retail version of the game. Because they ended up binning it in America and Japan as well. We were out of pocket hugely. So I ended up going to the boards and using it and stuff and saying, people, download the pirated version. You can save your high scores. So, yeah.
That's crazy.
Irony.
Yeah. Why? Oh, dear. But I have to say, I actually bought that on GBA just so... yeah, someone bought it. Yeah. I bought it mostly because of the nostalgia factor of the Amiga. I was just like, wow, okay, cool. I'm going to play an Amiga game like on the bus. That's going to be amazing. You know? So.
Yeah. Well, that was the weird thing was because Andreas Axelsson, who wrote the original version, he bought 4 versions. I don't know why he bought 4, but he bought 4 versions of it and downloaded the pirated version and only played the pirated version because he knew they could save the high scores that way. Because he and I are still mates now, you know. But he ended up saying when he was traveling, he used to, before he moved to China, because he lives there now. Before he moved there, he used to go to the Shaolin Temple for a month every year, because he does kung fu and stuff. So he would literally take a GBA with him for the flights in 2001, 2002, just so he could play something on the plane in it as pinball he chose to play. Weird.
That used to get me by on my bus journeys. I used to have an hour and a half there and back. So I used to sit and just try and beat my own higght scores.
Yeah, and they never saved them. No.
And they never saved them, so I'd have to remember what they were or put them on my phone. That's right.
It wasn't our fault. It was their fault, the swines.
On the subject of piracy, Stuart, I've always wanted to ask, like, a developer from yesteryear, you know, how was the issue with piracy with, like, the Amiga and everything? Was it as bad as it seemed?
Do you know what? I don't know. I mean, I'll put my hand up and say that we used to copy games left, right, and centre in those days, just because, you know. And this is quite ironic now that people are whinging today about paying £5 to £6 for a game. You know, when in 1982, 83, and Sabrewolf came out on Spectrum, it was the first £9.95 game, and everybody was shocked, but we still all bought it. You know, and that's what 30 years ago. You know, people whinging about £10 30 years ago. Now they're whinging about £6. I don't understand that. Anyway, but yeah, the piracy thing. It was strange because we all used to play pirated games, but we all used to buy them as well. So I've no idea how rife it was. I mean, you know, I would end up buying 4 or 5 games a month, but I ended up pirating 3 or 4 a month. So it's a difficult one. I mean, I don't think we could all have afforded to spend, you know, £20 per game. By 2020, was it 25 quid for ST Amiga games? It was, wasn't it? It wasn't.
Yeah, they were
like
on parity with like PC games today, weren't they, in terms of price?
Yeah, so let's say 20 quid for a game. So you couldn't really afford to buy many games a month, and the fact that I was already buying 4 or 5 a month, you know, so it's 80 to 100 quid a month in those days on games. You know, how much of a problem was it actually in that respect? You know, did we get shafted? Did we not? Yeah, I don't know. You know, as a developer, that is. But we all kind of did it, I think. I think even developers were like, "Oh, I can't be bothered buying that." So, you know, get us a copy, will you? Yeah, okay. You know, and if you did like it, you would go and buy it. But in those days, and this is no offense to anybody, there was so much dross, though. That, you know, you'd sometimes feel really begrudged about shelling out 20 quid for a game, and it was terrible.
Yeah, that's the thing, wasn't it? But back then, it was a case of. It wasn't just the games that you had to buy, it was also like the magazines, so you could know what you should be buying.
Oh, of course.
Because otherwise you'd just blindly buy a load of crap.
I used to love, actually, in the old days, in the 80s, Virgin used to have demonstration machines behind the counter, so you could actually play a game for 5-10 minutes before you bought it. Well, they used to do it in Aberdeen, definitely. It's our local Virgin there. I used to go into it once, twice a month. And I remember seeing Cyber Run from Ultimate on. I was like, yeah, I'll have that. So I bought it based on playing that in the shop, because I wasn't really convinced by the reviews beforehand. It's Ultimate, I had to buy it. You know, and actually it was the first time I remember playing a demo, if you like, or playing a game before I bought it and loving it. So yeah,
mine was mostly off of just like it would be a case of pirating a game and then seeing if I liked it, and then if I liked it, I'd probably buy it. So it would. That was the thing, you know. Before demos were a thing, you know. How else were you supposed to tell what a game was?
Which is ironic now, because as a developer, I hate doing demos.
Yeah, because they do impact the sales of the game.
Yeah, I mean, there's a recent thing someone pointed out recently, which I read in an article, and it basically said that you've got a 1 in 3 chance of making the perfect demo.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a chance of either giving the player too much and then going, I've played too much this game, I don't want to buy it anymore, I've seen what I need to see. or your demo is that bad people won't buy your game anyway, or you've got a chance to make the perfect demo which people say, yeah, I'll buy this now, but that's less than 25% of demos plays are actually sales.
Yeah.
So as a result, we're not going to be doing any more demos for games going forward until 3 months after the fact, just to allow that initial wave of comments, feedback, and I guess, just sales, really. People say, will I, won't I, will I, will I, will, buy it anyway.
I think one of the things where, that does definitely ring true, because when I was younger, and I'd buy, Amiga Power and stuff like that and get demos on there, I didn't buy as many games just because I was quite happy with the demo. I was like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. And the same happened with the PlayStation as well. When I used to buy the official PlayStation mag, it would be a case of there's a demo on there, and you could get away with playing I don't know, Pro Evo demo or something, and you could play that with your mates and just keep playing it because you wouldn't need to buy the full game because you still get a good half of football. So and it is damaging. I mean, now I don't really play demos because I don't want to waste my bandwidth downloading 3 gigs for something I'm going to delete.
I saw that the God of War Ascension single player demo came out today.
Yeah.
3.1 gigs pretty much.
Yeah, it's a big demo.
I mean, it's a demo.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, I think the biggest demo I've ever seen there was it Section 8? That was 3.6 gigs for the demo.
Wow, that's...
So what?
Yeah, it's insane, and that's the thing. And then you're just going to delete it anyway. So I download less demos now, and I buy more games. So
yeah, I do. And actually, I'd say that I kind of begrudge the Microsoft policy of every game must have a trial.
Yeah,
because you end up either shipping late trying to get the perfect demo, or it's just a waste, really. People who won't buy it because I've played enough of the demo. Yeah, how do you get that balance right on a demo? You don't really.
Or you could mess it up like, I think it was JVC who published Keo Flying Squadron on the Mega CD in Europe. They released a demo of Keo Flying Squadron on one of the Mega Power magazines or something like that. And what they'd done is just put in one line of code to prevent you jumping to level 2 when you completed level 1. But what people found out was that the level select cheat code was still in it.
Oh no!
So the entire game was on a demo disc.
Oh whoa!
Dope.
So yeah, if you're listening now and you want to get Keo Squadron very cheap, you just need the demo disc.
That's insane.
Yeah, actually, Marvin had some weird cheat codes in it as well, which did some bizarre things. I don't know if it took out the final version or not, but we have things you could actually make everything go upside down. So you could play with the top and the bottom and the top. So gravity would be reversed and everything. That was nuts.
So ahead of Mario Galaxy there as well, by many years. Yeah.
Probably, yeah. Yeah, well, lots of years.
I miss cheat codes actually. Thinking about it, yeah, that's.
Did you see that thing recently? I know it's left field again, but that Anonymous apparently hacked some US government website and put the Konami code on the website.
That's fantastic.
And if you type in the Konami code, you get a little hidden game, HTML5 game. Genius.
No one's actually noticed that I've hidden the Konami code on the RetroCollect site yet.
Have you?
Well,
they have now.
Yeah.
Oh.
I've kept that quiet for the last few years, and no one's really said anything. So now it's out.
Man, I really miss that. Even GTA got rid of cheat codes for GTA 4, and it's like, that was one of the fun things about GTA on the PS2 was that you'd have all these cheat codes, turn off everything, and you'd turn off gravity, so you'd have like massive jumps and stuff, and and then they just abandoned it for GTA 4, and you're like, why? Why are you doing this?
With a simple reason, really, it was after the shit that happened with coffee.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah,
Let's avoid being sued again in the future, guys. I know. Let's stop cheat codes.
The media are too sensitive.
Yes, unfortunately, today's generation. Unfortunately,
yeah.
So, would you say that we've kind of covered your early days very well, or do you reckon there's more to talk about with, I don't know, Grolier or Revolution, anything like that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, with Grolier, of course, I was there when I met David Braben first time we did V2000, which was a sequel to Virus, and I was one of the people who insisted he put the classic controls back into the game, because the controls from original Virus, as far as I'm concerned, were the dog's bollocks on PC and a mouse, on an ST with a mouse. And I thought there's no way you could do a sequel to it and not have those controls in there. We ended up doing that. I remember we did a focus test for it, and David came across for the day, and we had these 5 or 6 students, and we had one guy who I actually thought David was going to stand up and punch at one point. The kid turned around and said, "Are you not frightened the game's going to get confused with a really shit-looking Jamie Lee Curtis film called Virus?" And we were looking at each other going, "What? What are you on about, you stupid ball?" And this kid was so pretentious that he and David were arguing back and forth, and I actually did think David was going to wallop him one. Thankfully, he didn't. But it was like, oh my god, don't, please stop.
I can't imagine David Braben getting angry. Yeah,
I know. That's why I was shocked about it. Most of the time, going, oh god, this isn't good.
Yeah. That must have really been bad to got him up there. That's
yeah. Actually, another weird thing about Grolier, I remember I'd been there for a week. I started on Monday, and then the week Tuesday after I started, I had to go to Sony London to present 2 games to them for concept approval. And sat opposite me, because those days you couldn't just do what you do nowadays, which is do an online submission. You had to go to Sony and speak to their account manager across the table and sell the game to him, basically, on the merits of it and what the concept was before you could get approval to do it. And I remember it's me, my boss at the time, Ian Mathias, and Alistair Bodden, who'd mentioned earlier from Atari. He was at Sony, so he was our account manager. And I sat opposite him, and we were talking about these two games we're doing. In the first game, I aced the presentation. And we got to the second game, which weirdly enough was being developed by Andrew Braybrook and Steve Turner from Graphgold. Right. And at the end of it, I was just like a rabbit in the headlights. I just looked at Alistair and went, "It's not a bad game, really." And there was this 30 seconds of tumbleweed going by. The next thing, Alistair just wet himself. He goes, "A good job I know you, isn't it, Stu?" so that was bizarre. But yeah, that was quite funny. So yeah, rabbit headlights definitely. So yeah. Yeah, so my whole career has been filled with strange connections and people who I've known in the past histories, if you like. So, if you go back to when I was at 21st Century, in fact, before I worked at 21st Century, I wrote a compression system called ProPack, which Graphgold ended up using Paradroid 90. So I knew them from their games they wrote for Houston. Then I did work with them for Paradroid 90. Then I worked for Houston, 21st Century. Then I left, went to Grolier. Then I was working with Andrew and Steve again on another project unrelated. And it's a very, very odd career, having these guys keep turning up randomly throughout it. And then actually, before I started working at Grolier, I played a concert at Leicester University, and in the audience was Braybrook. This is mental. So I was like, okay. So yeah.
I found that with software in the UK, you do cross paths with a lot of people, even if you change industries. Yeah. You do end up crossing paths with a lot of people you've already met or worked with previously.
Well, the really weird one was, this is the most left field one ever. After I saw Two Towers in the cinema, the Lord of the Rings, I sent an email off to contact, because I heard that Wetted Digital were about to start a game development section. So I ended up speaking to a guy there called Michael, who wrote the crowd system, which was used in Two Towers for the Helm's Deep battle. And he said, well, we're not doing games yet, but we're probably going to do some stuff with these guys, a guy called Mario Winans at Side. So I dropped Mario an email. We got quite friendly over email for a couple of years, didn't speak to him for a while. And then I got a gig, in fact, the first gig I got back in October 2006 as Jaw. I was doing a contract for some company in London. And the first day I was there, they'd just got a contract, because there's two sides of the company. They did websites one side and games the other side. The website side of the company got a big gig doing Yo Sushi's new website and brand logo and everything. And I sat down in the canteen, and they just brought a whole load of free sushi in for everybody. And the guy sat next to me was I can't remember his name now, but he's a New Zealand guy. And we're just chatting. I said, yeah, I always got a job in New Zealand doing some game development for a guy called Mario in Wellington. He went, What? Not Mario Winans, is it? Yeah. I went to school with him. And that was just like, what? That was just bizarre.
That is insane.
Yeah, but you're right. It's the industry. You know where you are, who you're working for. You always find somebody you know somewhere, somehow. Yeah, I think that's all I can say with the old industry for me. You know, I mean, up to the point that, you know, when I went to from Grolier, I was part of their publishing side. There's 15 of us worked in the publishing side of the company, because we had an internal studio as well, which was working the Chronicle of Pern game, Dragonflight. And the external development, which I was one of the producers from, did a bunch of games. With David's V2000 was one of them. Then Tank Racer and Xenocracy with Simis Kuju, and then the Graph Gold game, which got canned, unfortunately. And then when I left Grolier, I left because they decided to shut down the publishing side of the company. So 15 of us were made redundant immediately. But I was the only one who was basically made to work out my 3 months notice period because they needed a project finishing off. So yeah, thanks for that, guys. Ended up spending 4 months out of work and got a job at Revolution. Moved up to Yorkshire. Was there for 9 months. And then with literally 2 days after I left Revolution, I had a job at Runecraft as a producer. That's where I met Steve Caslin, who's the Chief Technical Officer at Jaw now. But yeah, I worked on the best project I worked on, as far as I'm concerned, at Runecraft, was Soldier of Fortune, which we did the Dreamcast version of. I was proud of that game, that version we did, because the head of Activision UK for a while used to be the exec producer for PC games at Activision US. He produced on the original Soldier of Fortune on PC. And he said we saw all versions of it. And as far as we're concerned, the best version after the PC version was the Dreamcast version. Because the PS2 version didn't even use light maps. It was a light, everything was lit up. But the Dreamcast version it was exactly the same as the PC version, effectively, apart from the fact we had to chop the levels up into smaller, manageable chunks rather than big sprawling levels like they were in PC. So that was quite.
I had that
cool.
on Dreamcast, and that was a fantastic port. From the PC.
What was really weird is, though, that Raven actually rewrote the Quake 2 engine from C to C++.
Yeah. For
the PC version, and then for the Dreamcast version, we ended up rewriting it back to C again.
Oh, right.
It's like, what? So yeah, that was weird. We actually spent 3 months rewriting the engine before we actually had anything up and running. The biggest problem we had was not just the level size, but the animation data. In the original animation data in the PC version, every frame of animation was a keyframe. So there's not even any interpolation between the frames. So Paul Carter, our programmer on that, wrote a system to take their animation data as 150 frames of a guy smoking a cigarette as all keyframes, huge big 500k animation, and chuck it out as like a 28k, 30k animation using delta compression and stuff. Yeah, so that was one of the biggest things we did for that one. It was cool, and then when I left Runecraft in July 2002, and then in August 2002 we started up Binary Line Studios, which was the studio we did pinball at for Ubisoft. I managed to get the rights from the guys at Rebellion to do it, and Paul Carter, he and I decided to work on this together, and I think we spent 4 or 5 months doing Dreams and Fantasies on the GBA to get it finished. Wow. That was fun. And we did another couple of projects actually in GBA. We did a guy called Neil Goodman, who basically wrote a version of OIDS on GBA, which was nice. But it wasn't quite OIDS, it was inspired by OIDS. We called it Pilot. In fact, if you look at, I think computervideogames.com might still have screenshots of it on there. So if you look at Binary Studios and GBA, you might find the screenshots of the two games we were working on at the time.
Okay, so
one was kind of like Cooler World from Sony, one was like OIDS. But we couldn't get either of them signed up because everybody at the time is the transition between PS1 and PS2 time. And developers couldn't afford to do PS2, so they all went from PS1 to GBA. As a result, the market got so saturated that it pretty much imploded on itself. So with 12 months after starting the company up, we ended up closing down. Just because, though, we couldn't we couldn't get any more work, and I thought, well, we've got £1,500 or 1,500 quid overdrawn in the bank account. Do I take the risk of making a bigger hole in the bank account, and having to pay that back at some point, and hopefully getting another contract, or just say, stuff it, try the best shot, call it a day? And that would have been sort of September, October 2003, and then I'm taking those 3 years out of the games industry until my son came along and started a job.
Yeah. So what inspired you to create Just Add Water?
Well, it was two things really. It was one is, I mean, irrespective of the name, the company came out from the fact is that I believed to a degree at the time that the industry was heading towards a movie industry point of view, where you'd have staff designing your games at a high level and some technical people, but then you'd also outsource projects to other teams to do the work for you, like the way the movie industry does with scripts and stuff. And we did that for probably 15, 18 months or so. We did 5 projects for different companies that way. Ones I don't want to mention because they were the teams we used to do them, which weren't the greatest in the world. But it was work at the end of the day, and it was getting my name about again, and there are other people on the company, our names about in general, getting some awareness again. And then when doing one of the contracts, I met a programmer called Dave Parsons, and he would work on this little thing called Vectron on PC. And I bet him 10 quid I could get Sony to publish it on PS3 for us, whilst giving us lots of money. And he took the bet, and I won. So, yeah, hurrah! And that became Gravity Crash.
Gravity Crash is really, I love the fact that it's old school in terms of the mechanics. It feels kind of like like a jetpack meets a twin stick shooter kind of thing, doesn't it? So, but obviously with the soundtrack you got in Cold Storage, and that, to me, again, that sort of brings back the old days of Psygnosis and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, the weird thing is, Tim was doing music for me before Psygnosis was doing his music for Psygnosis. The first project he ever did music for, which was published, was that Powermonger introduction sequence.
Oh, right.
he wrote the music for that.
That incredible.
Was 1989, 1990. So that's when I first knew Tim, all those years ago. So I mean, we kind of lost touch for a few years when he got all Sony-ish, but it was good. We all stayed in touch and stuff, and I just happened to say to him, "Look, we're doing this game. I think your music would be bloody awesome on it. Would you mind, helping out with it?" "Yeah, not a problem at all." "How many bits of music do you want?" I said, "Well, maybe 30 pieces of music." Okay, so I ended up going down to 15. But yeah, and he only did like 120 sound effects for it. But yeah, so that's all in there, and it's Tim at his best, really. And some of the tracks, and especially the soundtrack album, are phenomenal.
Yeah, I bought that from his website straight away after I played the game. It was like, I'm going to have to go and buy that. So
yeah, we tried to actually get Sony to publish the soundtrack because the rights to Gravity Crash are owned by Sony now. That's the reason we got so much money for it, if you like.
Yeah.
Because they took the IP. But there was a clause in the contract that said the soundtrack was still copyrighted Tim and is only under a license to the game.
Right.
So when we came to ask Sony if we could, as Jaw, release the soundtrack on PSN, they went, no, we own that. And we were going, actually, I think you'll find you don't. And we ended up spending 3 months before the lawyers went, oh yeah. At that point, we'd already released it on Bandcamp and stuff, and if people wanted it, they'd already got it. So there's no point to release it on PSN anymore. So yeah.
But no, it's the thing with Gravity Crash, which I love. It's I love vector graphics. It's the most. For me, there is nothing better than vector graphics. I love it.
We literally spent ages in Greenlight before we got the approval on a visual style, and when we first started off, it was just straight neon. There's nothing else on it. If you look on the main ship when it rotates, there's a little like a highlight on it.
Yeah.
And we ended up calling that a jelly effect because one of the buildings we had in the prototype, it looked like 3 upside down towers, domed towers on it. And the way the light was on, it looked like jelly. When it was, you see the adverts, the jelly kind of towery type thing, wobbling back and forth. So we ended up calling that visual a jelly effect. But before we had that, we just had straight vectors, neons, nothing else. And our producer at Sony at the time, Phil Gaskell, he said, "Look, you need to have we love it. We want to find a better visual style for it. So I'm going to give you this guy Lee Karras to work with you." And Lee was the art director on Wipeout series. Now, unfortunately, because he was busy with Wipeout HD, he never did anything on it at all. So we spent 3 months panicking, going, "My God, what are we going to do? Is Lee not coming? No, he's not coming. Oh shit, what are we going to do?" So we spent the last 4 weeks before their Greenlight meeting itself, deciding the visual style, and we were just talking one day, Dave and I, we came up with this idea of having got a 3D glow on it, and that's where the jelly effect came from. And that was it, really. I mean, we had, if you look on our Facebook page, there's a whole lot of screenshots of earlier visual styles, as well as some concepts and stuff, which weirdly turned out to be exactly like Pixel Junk series.
Yeah, that's weird, because when I was playing Shooter, I was thinking to myself, man, that's really unfortunate that these two games have come out quite close together. In terms of Gravity Crash and Pixel Junk Shooter, the first one, because the mechanics are really similar.
Yeah,
but the game styles are different.
Well, Dylan and I spent ages talking about this, and we came to the conclusion in the day that, yes, they're both 2D games with shooting aspects to them, but in all intents and purposes, PJS should really be an adventure game rather than a shooter game. Because you do less shooting than you do adventuring and puzzle solving kind of things. Whereas Gravity Crash is, no, it's balls to the wall, you shoot shit. So, but we actually exchanged builds before Gamescom, the year it came out in 2009. So we were playing each other's games in July 2009. And one of the things we had in Gravity Crash, which amazingly snuck it into the final version of Pixel Junk Shooter, was that when you go really, really fast, these little contrails come off the sides of the ship.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that came from Gravity Crash, because the version we saw for Gamescom didn't have that in it. And when I spoke to him later, he said, yeah, we kind of got that and something else from looking at Gravity Crash. Mumble. And then I think also in Pixel Junk Shooter 2, there's a Just Add Water trophy, which came from us, apparently. They came up with the name for it because of us.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I didn't even connect, because I didn't know that you were you were friends with Dylan. That's insane.
When they announced the third one, what was it? Pixel Junk side scroll.
Side scroll.
Yeah, I haven't still finished PJS 2 yet. I'm on the last level. I just haven't finished it yet. But he emailed me before the announcement came out. He says, don't take offense. We're just kind of tipping our hat to you in some degree. And I'm thinking, what are you on about? And the next day, this trailer showed up with these neon graphics. I was like, no!
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought that was probably...
Yeah. But it's fine.
Because side-scroller does look a lot like Gravity Crash.
You spotted that as well, then? Yeah. Well, that's the weird thing is that we thought we were doing a lot better than they were when we launched, sales-wise. They launched on 10th of December. We were launched on November 23rd, 24th. And because that was the Tuesday it launched, because they moved it forward to match the Thanksgiving release in the States, which, of course, nobody in Europe gave a shit about then. So people went on the Thursday to get the store update. They had a second store update that week as well. So it's like, oh, God, but we thought we did something like 60,000 units in 4 days, so we were ecstatic. Because in the demo games on PS3, you're not allowed to post leaderboards. So we saw the scores. Oh, fuck me! There's 56,000 people playing this. Awesome! We've sold 56,000 copies. So I emailed Phil, our producer, on Saturday, just saying 56,000 units according to the leaderboards. And on Monday he rang me up and just said, just got the sales in, yeah. I mean, did you say 56,000? Nah, try 5,500. And then we discovered there was a bug in leaderboards. Even the demo version, it posted leaderboards.
Oh,
so it's
no.
like, no! Not only did we break a TRC, but 2 Sony QA departments didn't find it, and nobody else did until the game was out, and we thought, why is there so many high scores? Oh, no. So, yeah.
Which is weird, because Sony's QA in the UK is super strict compared to the American one.
Dave Bennett and Jeff Rands, who run that kind of side of things, they're ninjas at it. I mean, Jeff, who I'm assuming he's still there, Jeff Rands, who runs the whole QA site there. I've known Jeff since 97, 98, when he was just a senior tester there.
Yeah.
Every day he used to go out and go 10-pin bowling at lunchtime. That was it. Lunchtime, Jeff's out the door. And that was his thing. But now he was your typical scout. So he started playing games in his 40s, for Christ's sakes. His first job in games was being a QA tester at Sony Liverpool. And then now he's running this whole QA department there and the head of the TRC documents for Europe and stuff. So he's done well for himself. He's a good guy.
Yeah.
Dave Bennett, who used to be in the first part of QA, he's now I don't know if it's submissions director or whatever. But he's on FQA, the main submission QA department.
Yeah.
But that's where he is now. And if ever any problems, I usually email Dave first. It's like, I've seen we've got a TRC bug. Is that legitimate? And he go, even though we're not, submission hasn't finished yet, he'll email me saying, yeah, here's the details. But you just go and fix it and do a quick resubmit straight away. So, handy that. But yeah, so on Pixel Junk stuff, we were on Gravity Crash, we were gutted that we'd had this bug in it and our sales were atrocious. But we ended up, our first year sales, I think, were about 36,000 units, which was nothing, for a year. But, Pixel Junk Shooter was more like 100k in the same period. So we knew we'd lost ground to them, but mainly because Sony America marketed the game properly, Pixel Junk Shooter properly, and Sony Europe didn't market at all, really. At the time, Sony, even the guys in XDev, had a massive problem with the marketing department in London not caring two shits about PSN or digital.
Yeah.
That's since changed, obviously, but at the time it was the people that had working there who are no longer there now, they didn't care. Yeah.
No, that's the thing. When these games came out, I tried to do because I post on various forums, and I'm very much behind indie games on PlayStation, just because that's the reason I like the PlayStation more than I like the other consoles. Just that I prefer the indie games that are on it. So I'm always out there trying to push them and saying, everyone needs to download this, everyone needs to download Gravity Crash, or and the thing is, the only way I could get people interested in it on one forum was to sort of say it's like Jetpack and Geometry Wars had a baby. And then people were like, oh, right, okay. And then they would go and play it, and you're like, yeah, see?
Yeah.
And they would come back going, yeah, it is. It's Jetpack and Geometry Wars.
Well, what it does of actually is there's a Wikipedia page for it, and it says the game is inspired by Oids and Subterranea on Amiga. And we're thinking, what? I haven't even heard of Subterranea. What the hell's that? So I went into Wikipedia and edited it to say, no, the inspiration was Oids on ST, Thrust on the BBC and Spectrum and everything else, and Gravatar, over it was back from 1979. And the next day I looked back to the page again, and it had been changed back. I'm like, what? I repost again, put a note on it just saying, please note, I'm the boss, CEO of JAW, who make the game. I know where we came up with. And the guy said, until you can prove it publicly that's proper citation, you're wrong. What?
Wow.
So I go, I thought, fuck you. I'm not bothering now. But yeah, so you say Jetpack and thingy. It's weird because to us it was purely Oids, Thrust, and Gravatar.
Yeah, because I was trying to think of the old games. Thrust definitely came to mind with obviously with the controls, in terms of being able to land and go. That was one of the things that I thought of. But the other, when I started thinking about things like you losing your fuel and stuff like that, and then picking it started thinking more of the jetpack thing, and then
that was Thrust. Thrust did that in the BBC,
That did that first, yeah. But when I was trying to sort of put it across to people, I was trying to think of something that people might remember, because a lot of people are quite young on forums, which is annoying.
Oh, tell me about it. Oh.
So yeah, it was just a case of look, it's got music that's straight out of Wipeout as well. It's Cold Storage.
Yeah,
you need to play this.
But that was the weird thing. I mean, to go forward a little bit further, when we talk about age on forums and stuff, you're right, because when we did Stranger's Wrath on PC, the original port of it, which was just hard to do a straight port, we got ripped a new one when we released that because it didn't work on ATI boards at all. And we couldn't work out why, because the QA company we used to test on hardware said it worked on all but one of their ATI boards. So we were like, fine. Ended up working on any ATI boards because their OpenGL implementation from ATI at the time was terrible in the drivers. But we had one guy on Facebook, Oddworld page, who said to the time, I'm running Crysis in extreme detail mode at 300 frames a second. Why is this only running at 60 frames a second? I'm thinking, hang on a minute, how old are you? You were 15. Why? How could you afford a PC with that much kit in it? Oh, my daddy bought it for me. Oh, God. And it's just like, please let the grounds open up and swallow me up. It was bad because and that's why I got a lesson into online etiquette, shall we say, being a CEO of a company and dealing with punters. The same thing with Gravity Crash, because there's a bug in Gravity Crash, which Sony didn't want. I wouldn't say they didn't want us to fix it. Their QA guys couldn't find it. We couldn't find it, and I only found the bug how to recreate it about 6 months after the PS3 version came out when we were testing the PSP version, because the same bug turned up. But the bug was on the PS3 version was suddenly 2 trophies were unlocked. One for beating all the times and all the levels, and one for getting all the gems and all the levels, or something like that. And we couldn't work out what it was, and it ended up being something so stupidly simple. If you booted the game up on PS3 and went into multiplayer or user-generated play levels, and then came out of that again, it would update the save game. The problem is, though, it never loaded the save game in the first place to get your progress. So it would literally save out an empty save game file with the level status and stuff progression all set to 0. So what's the best time for this level? 0 seconds. Oh, okay then. I've beaten that one. And that was it. And it took us like 6 months to find it out, because we only found it because we were testing the PSP version and I'd done something and all the scores reset suddenly. I think, what? That's weird. And I got it down to 3 simple steps. And that was just literally go into something other than campaign mode straight away, exit that, and go back into campaign mode. Done. Broken. And we never got a chance to patch it on PS3 or update it, which was quite sad. But these things happen.
At least I know how to go and get a couple of trophies.
Yeah, careful, because it'll screw up the rest of it. I was actually quite naughty because the game was always too hard for me to play, so back in those days, the developer system on test PS3s, you could actually log into the main network, which you can't anymore. And I actually hookied all the levels up so I could just have one item to collect in every level to unlock all the levels. I'm sorry. I cheated my own game. How disgraceful.
Cheating,
but yeah, another thing we were surprised about as well is Americans and a lot of younger players didn't get the concept of lives. In today's games, think about it, you don't have lives anymore. If you drop down dead where you are, you either start off where you just drop down dead or go back to the last checkpoint. You don't have 3 lives, game over, you're out. So from release to game, you had 3 lives, that was it. Then the feedback was so negative towards, we ended up doing this thing was that if you ran out of lives, it said, do you want to continue? Yes, no. If you said yes, it said, please be aware you're about to reset your score to 0, which other games are doing at times. So we ended up doing that. So you could continue where you left off, but you just lose your score. And the younger players don't get the whole idea of lives, and that's what the game was meant to be. It's meant to be a homage to the days of classic gaming.
Well, that's how I took it as well, and it was like, okay, I'm not gonna continue because I'm gonna reset my score, and I don't want to do that, so I'm gonna carry on. I'm gonna go back, start again, get a bit further. And it's the same, the same sort of principle behind Geometry Wars as well. You have lives and you try and get your next score, and it's all about getting a little bit better, and it's training you as a gamer to become better.
Yeah, well, the classic one we had from an American fan, he went onto the forums, on the PlayStation blog. We'd posted a news story about the PSP version coming in, and he came onto the place and said, I don't get this game. Every time I let go of the controls, my ship crashes into the ground. And an actual Sony employee replied and said, well, the clue's in the title. It's called Gravity Crash.
Yeah.
And the guy went, I don't get it. I said, oh, seriously? So in the PSP version, we ended up adding a third ship, which had no gravity like the Pixel Junk shooter ships did.
Yeah.
So you let go of the sticks, you just hovered there.
Yeah.
You know, because people didn't get it. They didn't the idea of holding your ship up in case it bashed into the deck. Well, you know, that's classic gaming for 1 and 2. That's what the name of the game is. So.
Exactly. I mean, and that's what I found so endearing to that, and the games. Yeah, like I said, like with Geometry Wars as well. It helps. It helps you become a better gamer at that game, and that is what gaming always was to me. It was about, like Super Mario Brothers, you know, it would be a case of you get to World 8-3 and it would kick your ass, and you'd be like, okay, right, I can't continue from World 8-3, so I'm going to have to go back, do it all again. But you get a little bit further in 8-3 until you can get past it. Yeah. And it's just about learning the game, learning the mechanics, and learning how to deal with it, not just having a thing of you continue from where you left off, because you're not learning, you know?
Yeah. I think the first game I remember playing, which kind of broke the whole concept of game over, was the first Tomb Raider. They had those gems you could run through every so often, which was like a little checkpoint. So if you died, you went back there.
Yeah,
that was only for the PlayStation version, though. You could save anywhere in the PC version.
Right. Okay. But still, though, it's like it broke shit. Yeah. What? I'm dead. Why am I starting again? Yeah.
Yeah. No,
they were just too hardcore.
I think gaming has gotten away from that quite a bit. One game recently though, which has become that sort of thing for me, is Super Hexagon. You know, the iOS game.
Yeah.
God damn, that game kicks my ass. But I go back like an abusive relationship. You know,
It was quite funny actually. Well, the one iOS game I played recently, which was like, oh my god, this is how gaming should be, was the port of Battle Squadron from the Amiga.
Oh yeah, how is that? Because I saw that.
It's exactly the same as the Amiga version. It's nothing different.
I'm gonna have to check that out actually, because I was wondering how it was.
It's just the Amiga version, but the problem is though, it was fine when we were 18.
Yeah.
Now that I'm 43, I'm like, it really isn't that good at all. Yeah, it is the old rose-tinted glasses again, you know.
So moving back onto your stuff. Sorry.
That's all right.
So after Gravity Crash, obviously, you then moved on to working with Oddworld inhabitants. On the Oddworld games. You touched on the fact that, you know, the Oddworld Stranger's Wrath on PC had a bit of an issue with the thing. But
with everything really, yeah.
PS3 version was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just, to be able to play a game at 60 frames per second on a console these days is quite rare. So it was, I mean, I was completely blown away by the fact that I loved the original on the Xbox.
Yeah.
But I never finished it because it
same as me. I literally got as far as I think the third or fourth bounty on the Xbox.
Yeah.
And then ditched it.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed it, but I think it was just because the next lot of consoles started coming, like not long after Stranger's Wrath, so I missed it basically.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. I mean, Oddworld were a victim of their own success in some strange respect, because when Munch came out as a launch title for Xbox One against Halo, you know, and everybody went, "Oh, it's got guns, I can shoot shit." Halo wins. At the time, Microsoft believed that they were going to be more of a Nintendo thing rather than a Halo thing, if you like.
Yeah.
So that's why they kind of put all the cookies into the bag with Munch, not thinking, of course, Halo was going to be the thing that would be the console shifter. So that was the launch title there with Munch. And then Stranger was literally, it came out in March 2005, 7 months before the 360 came out.
Yeah.
And because of that, the industry had already moved on waiting for the 360. They weren't really fussed about Xbox One games, even though on Xbox One it's probably the best looking Xbox One game there is.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, absolutely stunning. Microsoft Oddworld were a victim of that whole timing and or mucked up timing, really. And Lorne admits this. As far as he's concerned, they were victims of EA's marketing, but mainly because EA decided to move on and concentrate on doing 360 stuff because the launch was 7 months away. They cut marketing for Europe. They cut deciding to do Italian and Spanish localization for it. So the game was only ever translated into French and German originally on Xbox. And then they also binned the PS2 version they said they were going to do as well. And that's sad, really, because if it had come out on PS2 and it maybe came out 6 months to a year earlier, it would have done a lot better than it did do. But as it stood, I think it kind of sold less than 500,000 units worldwide, which
it's tragic for a game of that quality.
Especially looking at the Abe games. Abe games, their combined sales on PSX were 5 million units between Odyssey and Exodus.
That was the thing. When I remember, I don't know, were you a fan of those games before?
What was really weird is when Odyssey first came out, myself and my wife used to sit. We had one of these futon beds in the living room, so we used to literally fold the sofa out into bed and play Odyssey until whatever time in the morning. And our cat, who's sadly deceased now, he used to sit there and watch us play. You see his head moving around as Abe was running around the screen. It's mental. So we loved those games from day one, and that to be able to go from that to being working with them is it's definitely a career highlight for me. And to know that they're not just, if you like, employers, because we're in an agreement together. It's a shared agreement. We're also friends as well, which is great. Oddworld, as it stands now, consists of effectively 3 people. 3/4 people. Was Sharon McKenna, who's CEO and co-founder, Lauren Lanning, who's president and co-founder, myself, who's down as the development director, basically, and Natalie, who's basically the PA in the office. That's it.
Wow, that's
and she's only like an intern, effectively a part-time kind of thing, as far as I'm aware. So there's not a lot of people actually at Oddworld. Up until probably 4 months ago, 99% of the work was done out of our office at Jaw in the UK. We're now trying to redress that, so we're because we are now more public as Oddworld. We're now more publicly accessible as Oddworld now. It's trying to tell everybody that yes, Oddworld is back. We are spending some money on marketing. We are talking to a lot more people now than we used to do. But for me, it's quite confusing because I've got these 2 hats nowadays. I don't just have my Jaw hat. I've got my CEO of Jaw hat and my development director of Oddworld hat, who tends to do all the most of the day-to-day stuff with Oddworld still today. The only time I go to the HQ in the States is to run things past them to make sure they're cool with it and just let them know what we're up to. So it's fairly simplistic in that point of view. But at the end of the day, it's the PS3 version came out of a strange thing. When we started doing the PC version in May 2010, I said to them, we'd love to do a PS3 version, and Lauren was like, well, Sony won't want to touch us after we screwed them up for Microsoft, which we really feel bad about. I said, well, I think you'd be surprised. So he said, put together a plan, what you think you can do. So we put together a basic outline of what Stranger's Wrath HD was going to be, how we're going to improve it and stuff. Did the Sony IPA at the time, which is the concept approval stage, and we got back, I think, 2 Bs and 3 or 4 C issues. No A's at all, which we're quite relieved with, and as a pass. But the B's and C's were things like, the Xbox version was guilty of having poor quality audio. Can you redress this, remaster the audio? Well, we already said we're going to do that anyway. Because originally audio and the Xbox version was only 8-bit audio.
It wasn't good.
Yeah, we had the original source assets. So 16-bit, 22K, and 44K audio. We still had those around, so we're going to rebuild those again. And they said things like, the original pre-orders had a DVD with it, which showed you some behind-the-scenes Oddworld stuff. And I was thinking, hang on a minute, I didn't even know about that.
No, I don't.
So I was like, who the hell at Sony knows all this? Are they just a crazy Oddworld fan or what? And it took until May last year to find out why that was, but I'll get to that in a second. So we sent it in, and within 10 days we got approval from Sony, told Lauren and Sharon, they're like, really? I said, yeah. I said, they seem to love it, seem to love Oddworld, they're all up for it. So in September 2010 we started doing the R update, which was going to be first off for the PS3 version, and then the PC update. Yeah. So we released PC version December 22nd, 2010. By 40 hours after that, I thought I'd killed Oddworld because such a negative response we got on Steam.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, that's great, it works fine on our machine," but most people just say it doesn't work with shit. And we released an update within, I think, 10 days with some major tweaks because we found out, for example, as daft as it sounds, the final blit to screen, we're actually doing it twice by accident. So we ended up taking one of those calls out and we instantly got back double frame rate. Like all those kind of little things like that. Fixed some other bugs in NVIDIA boards. Discovered that most of the problems with ATI were down to drivers. Even got ATI's head of R&D at the time, who's now left, and said, look, what's going on? Not R&D, sorry, development relations. So what's going on with this? Your drivers are wrong. And they go, no, our drivers are fine. And we end up having to email them a little executable in code, a test case of a teapot with Z depth test in it. And they went, oh, you are right. And then they released a hot fix for the drivers, and suddenly things started to work slowly but surely. But we still took a lot of flack for it. But so in the meantime, we did the PS3 version. We didn't actually start the PS3 version coding until we'd done the initial 2 updates for PC version. So we didn't actually start coding until March 2011 on the PS3 version. We had a new programmer start with us on April 4th, 2011 to help with this. We had 2 programmers on it. Unfortunately, in the 4 months he was with us, he didn't do anything other than a black screen.
Right.
So we ended up having basically 1 programmer on it for 6 months. Then we hired a guy called Pete Mehmet, who joined us in September 2011, and he was there till the end of the project. Oh, he's still with us now, but he was on Stranger until the end of it. So we basically had Steve Caslin on it for 6 months, or 9 months total, sorry, and Pete Mehmet on it for 6 weeks in total. So 1.1 programmer effectively for the whole duration of Stranger's Wrath PS3 did that. We ended up ramping up to do stuff from Munch HD, so we ended up using those artists to do some environment tweakage in Stranger, like make barrels more round, make pipes more round, all that kind of stuff in environments. Do a whole new UI system for it because the original UI was pretty ropey on the Xbox.
Yeah, very.
So the UI in it today in all versions of Stranger's Wrath HD is still the Xbox UI system using Flash 7.
Oh, right.
So ActionScript 1. But we ended up redoing new menus for it completely. So there and there. And then we released it. We were originally intended to release it with 3D and Move Sport, but we held us back to make sure we got it out in time for Christmas. So we got it out on December 20th, and we were the number 1 downloaded title in America, I think, for the first week. But for the end of December, we ended up being so that was in Europe the first week. Then America came out on December 27th because they had an extra week lead time to come out to Europe. So those 3 days of 2011 that Stranger's Wrath was out there, it went up to number 7 in the total sales.
See, that's pretty good. I mean, there was a lot. I remember when it was just about to come out about a week before, and the buzz about that download for a game that no one really gave a crap about originally was incredible. I mean, the buzz on the internet was every forum you'd go to, people were like, "Oh man, when's the PS3 version?" And then when the PS3 version came out, the praise was incredible. I mean, the reviews were great as well. I mean,
I think we ended up having the highest Metacritic one was 86 and dropped to 82.
Right.
But still, it's 82. Yeah. It's great. So we had that. Then when we finished that, Steve, our CTO, went on to do the update for it, which had the Move and 3D support. And that ended up taking twice as long as we originally hoped. We hoped to be done in 3 months, ended up being done in 5 months, pretty much. But just after we'd released it we thought about moving offices. We ended up moving to the top floor of the building we're in now from the bottom floor. And as soon as we got upstairs, Pete jumped onto the Vita version, and he basically much spent 6 months writing it himself. 10 months writing it himself.
That is an incredible port. I mean, I'm impressed with the PS3 version, but the Vita version, that's the one I play most because it's more convenient to play it on my Vita.
Yeah. Have you got the update yet?
I did, yeah. I downloaded that. PlayStation Plus downloaded that for me.
That was nice of it.
Yeah. But no, it's. I can't believe it because you've got it running. Pete has got it running full resolution.
Yeah.
On the Vita.
Yeah.
60 frames.
Vita, it's more 30. Some places will hit 60.
Yeah, I've seen some.
And some places it does drop to 18 at the end of the game. But even when it drops to 18, it's only for like a few seconds. It's not like it's a continuous. The average is 30 throughout.
Yeah.
With a kind of pop up to 45 as well in a lot of places.
You see, because it's the bits when I was playing it, I was thinking, this is really smooth. So,
yeah. I think it's that screen. That screen is stunning. It's phenomenal.
It is a great screen. It makes me not want to watch. I've got a really expensive TV, and it still makes me want to use my Vita for games more than because of the screen. It's just so vibrant. But one of the things I found fascinating, I was reading an interview with Peter on Digital Foundry.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that if you turn off the Wi-Fi functions, you get more CPU clock speed.
Right. Well, that's a semi misnomer. There's the console in SDK mode has got in development mode has got 3 power modes: power mode A, B, and C. Now we didn't realize this until August last year. We had one of the guys from London, Sony, come up and visit us for a day, just because we were hitting 20 frames a second at non-native, maybe 30 frames a second in some places non-native. I think we were running at 725, 7.6 before, something like that. And then we wanted to do native, and it's a weird thing to take a step back a little bit actually. If you go back to early May last year, I was across at Oddworld HQ, and we were invited to go to Sony America to talk to them and stuff, and to show them what we're up to. So we showed them Munch on PS3 and Munch on Vita and Stranger on Vita. But before we did that, I said to them, it would be really kind of cool if we could have some kind of presence at your E3 booth. And Miyamura, who's the head of their marketing, said, there's no space. We've already fully decked out all the Vita stations, and we can't get anybody else on this. So that's a shame. But we'll show you the games anyway. So we stuck Stranger up first. And it was kind of broken then because the multi-texturing in the town, for example, that wasn't working properly. Instead of having the dirt tracks where if you like, your truck tires were, it was just black. But it was still there. The game was still running. It still looked nice. It wasn't native. And next thing, Miyamura got up out of her chair and walked out of the room. And we carried on talking to the rest of the guys. And that's when I discovered actually that the chap who'd greenlit is effectively constant approvals for us on PS3, who gave us all his feedback about the pre-ordering discs and movies and features and stuff, was sat opposite me in that room. And there's a guy called Steve Grohl, who happened to be the PR executive at EA when Lauren was there doing the PR with him on the original Stranger's Wrath.
Oh, wow.
Which is how he knew about it. So it was weird because when last time Lauren had seen Steve was probably about 5-6 years ago. And Steve walked in the room and just went, "Hey, Lauren." And Lauren looked at him and was, "Oh my God." And these two guys are bear hugging each other like crazy. I'm like, "Sorry, and you are?" So that was quite cool finding that out. But so Miyamura walked back in, whispered to a couple other guys, and the next thing, they said, "Yeah, we can have 2 spaces for you in E3 if you want it." Just on the basis of that really early sketchy demo of Vita Stranger.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we spent the next we did. I mean, I want to get it out by July, and we could have done, but we decided we wanted to optimize the shit out of it, and make it run native resolution. So we ended up spending like 3 to 4 months improving it, fixing render bugs, optimizing the hell out of it, and then Colin from Sony and just said, "You know about Power Mode B, though?" And you were like, going, "No idea what you're on about." They said, "Well, do this," and there you go, running at native resolution. at 30 frames a second. We're like, going, holy crap! What the, you know? And that was where it came out of. So I don't think you can necessarily on the retail machine just disable Wi-Fi and you get better performance. I think it's actually done in the code that the code's going to say to it, switch the console to power mode B. And if you remember rightly, when Uncharted came out, it said to you, this message box came up and just said, network is not available or something at this point in time.
Yeah, Super Stardust does that as well. Yeah,
that's because it's enabling power mode B.
Right. Okay. I did wonder what was going on with that because, yeah, those two games they're native as well, aren't they? The Super Stardust and Uncharted.
They're basically it's turbo button from the old PC days. Turbo, and just puts the clock speed up a little bit by saving battery usage from the networking side of things.
Yeah, I've got because one of my mates, I'm not going to say who he is or what he's working on, but he was saying when working with Vita does feel like the old days of programming.
Yeah.
In terms of there are loads of little tricks and there's loads of little nuances that you can do, and he's just saying it's exciting to work on it.
Yeah. I'm going to say something here, Rachel. I've got an idea of what project you're talking about. Because knowing where you are right now, I would love to have a look at that.
Yeah.
Because look at the video last week, 2-3 weeks ago. I was thinking they're being really crafty with light and shade in this to give better illusion of more that's going on that actually is going on.
Yeah.
But I'd still want to. I'd love to have a look at it properly.
Yeah, me too. I've begged him. I'm like, seriously, just get a dev unit and let me have a look.
Yeah. Just walk out the office. Nobody's going to. Yeah.
But I was blown away by that video that I saw. But he was just saying, they're still optimizing the hell out of it. So I'm like, man, this thing's going to look insane when it comes out.
Well, I mean, the thing we had with Stranger, which we did on PS3 and Vita version, was that the original Xbox, it had basically multi-texturing, but you do it in a texture per unit. Whereas on the PS3 and Vita, you can say, right, I want to have 5 or 6 layers of texture passes in this one, texture unit itself. So we optimized like 5 render passes down to 2 render passes on Vita, for example, that sort of thing. And removing those passes does massive things to upgrade to improve not the stability, but the performance of the machine. Instead of rendering things 5 times, you're rendering things twice.
Yeah.
That's a huge bonus for performance. So
that's awesome. And obviously we've got Munch on Vita to look forward to as well, don't we?
Yeah. Well, we're not far away from that now. I mean, I'm hoping it's going to be out April time.
That'd be nice.
I'll talk about Easter. I mean, it's. I can't go into why it's been taking so long, but it's we're almost there now. Thankfully,
it's going to be so cool to have all 4 of the Oddworld games on the go. That's just going to be so good.
Yeah. Well, it's strange because it's nice to, because obviously Munch is out on PS3 already on for Christmas there, so it's nice to have all the Oddworld games on the PlayStation platform again. In fact, as Lorne, I think he said somewhere else, when I told him about the Stranger on PS3, and I think he said in an interview, it's good to be home again. And, that's not any indication against Microsoft per se, but it's more of a case of that's where they started out with Abe's Odyssey on PlayStation 1, on the PlayStation family. Yeah. So to be able to be back on the PlayStation family again, it's great. I mean, unfortunately, I am a PlayStation fan, more than an Xbox. But that's just me, and plenty of people in the office are the other way around. Some of the guys obviously have a PlayStation, but it's nice to have Oddworld. We're not PlayStation exclusive. Don't get me wrong. We are platform agnostic, but to get projects back on that original system they were on in 95, 96, 97, when they first published Abe's Odyssey, it's great.
No, I agree. I'm a born again PlayStation fan. I sort of went off it at the beginning of this generation on PS3 because I went more to the Xbox, but then I sort of moved back to PlayStation when they started making loads of like cool indie games like I was talking about, and that's what got me back. And and like seeing, and the thing was for me, I've always wanted to have like series of games on the same system. So when it was a case of, like now I've got all 4 of the Oddworld games on my PS3 hard drive, 3 of them on my Vita at the moment. So it's going to be cool to have all of them on one place. Do you think that there is a bigger market for Oddworld outside of games? Because I remember Lorne saying this years ago, that it was going to be like he saw Oddworld as a massive franchise that should be doing more than just games. Is that something that he still?
He and Sherry Alt would love to do a movie or TV series based on Oddworld. I mean, they were for a while speaking to the people at Fox, not Fox. Who is it? Who is it that did Ice Age and stuff?
Fox. Yeah.
Yeah. So they spoke to him, I believe, for a while back about possibly doing a movie. Never came off. And it was as it was recently announced about 3-4 weeks ago. They were talking to J.J. Abrams before he did Lost.
Wow.
About doing something. And that was interesting. Those two, their backgrounds are movies. Visual effects stuff. Sherry McKenna produced the last Starfighter movie. She did all the visual effects. Well, her team was production and visual effects for Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure in 2010. And she's done a lot of other movies as well. So her and Lorne's heart, I guess you'd say, belongs in storytelling in a medium like film. The games were a way for them to get to do an Oddworld film. But because of I won't say troubles, but because of the state of the market was 8 years ago, that they kind of said we've had enough now. Let's take a step back from this because it's the industry's turned into something that we didn't like it being.
Yeah,
and that's true. And there's a lot of people who are disheartened with the PS2, Xbox One generation in terms of from a development cycle. It's all about the big corporate companies, Activision, EA, etc. Throwing their weight around and getting their way and stuff and what have you. But as you said, PS3 has turned more into this indie, and Xbox 360 more into the indie thing. More so PS3 over Xbox. It's definitely more indie than it used to be, and that's great. I kind of said it's like it was in the early part of this industry as a whole, especially in the UK with bedroom programmers and stuff. With modern engines now, you can download a free version of Unreal and CryEngine and make shit at home yourselves.
Yeah.
And you can write stuff yourselves. And if you speak to people at Sony and stuff, you can get on those platforms. Today it's been announced that Mike Bithel's Thomas is Alone's coming to PS3 and Vita soon.
Incredibly excited about that. That's going to be awesome.
Yes, Mike's a friend of mine, so it's good to see him with that being announced at last. But yeah, it's interesting times, and I think the biggest. I think this industry this generation started off with the Xbox 360 and the whole live situation, and people thought maybe the paid for subscriptions was the future, but Sony's with PS Plus and with PS3 have kind of proved it's not.
Yeah.
Why should you cripple your users for having by forcing them to pay a subscription to get the best content? It's rubbish. There's something I saw recently. Someone did a side by side picture of the SCEA have given $10 to pretty much every PSN user as a gift for being loyal. And then Microsoft gave people 20 points.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that was for their the 10th anniversary of Xbox Live, wasn't it? They just gave,
Yeah, there you go. 20 points, there you go. That'll buy you absolutely nothing, in fact. And that's phenomenal. And obviously Oddworld have had some problems with Microsoft in the past. And us with Microsoft, with Oddworld in the recent years trying to get Stranger on there. But that's their policy. I'm not going to say they're doing it wrong. But I think they are doing it wrong. They've been very closed for indies. I think I read today somewhere that the guys that did Retro City Rampage said that the Vita version sold more than Xbox, Steam, and PS3 versions has. And he even cited saying that the XBLA version cost them more to make than all the other versions put together.
Yeah.
The question is why? There should be no reason for that at all. And it's sad that Microsoft are forcing their customers to like this. And something else I do question in general is the number of hardware seats, consoles sold. PS3's hit 77 million units ish globally, and I think Microsoft announced that it hit 75 million globally. But if you think back to the first 18 months, 2 years of the Xbox 360, there's a 50% failure rate.
Yeah.
So how many of those 75 million consoles are still working and not on landfill sites?
Yeah.
I think there's going to be far more PS3s around than there are 360s right now. And that's just from simple numbers and working out, PS3 has been around for 1 year less than Xbox. And if the first 18 months or so of Xbox's life, it was failing left, right, and centre. You had the red ring of death everywhere. I got one guy in town here who's had 5 of the damn things.
Yeah, I went through 4.
So, no one's actually questioned this to say, okay, you've had 75 million consoles, but how many of those are actually still living?
Yeah. It's true. I mean, the failure rate was ridiculous in the early days of the Xbox. Because I remember once I phoned up because my 360 was scratching discs, and I phoned up, and the guy on the phone heard a train go by my house and asked if I lived in a flat. And I was like, yeah, I live on a top floor flat. And he was like, oh, near a train track. And I was like, yeah. He was like, yeah, he goes, that's not really good for the Xbox if you've got it in that sort of condition, because the vibrations and things like that. And I was like, no, you just want to fix it, not tell me to move house.
Yeah, it is a bit bonkers, I have to say.
That was insane. That was the best customer support call I've ever had. Just being told that I need to move.
Yeah.
Yeah. Abe's Odyssey, new and tasty.
Yes.
What promises can you make live on air about those who still play the original, in terms of how true is it going to be to the original format? And
right. Well, put it this way, we've been asked all sorts recently about it. The footage we showed at Eurogamer last year, we could have shown a lot more, but we literally had 5 minutes to recapture that footage on that morning. So because people said to us, it's not very gory. Where's all the gore gone? Well, Christ, you've only seen literally the first 10 screens in the original game. If we went another 8 screens beyond, you would have seen all the mincing machines from the original game. So the gore is still there. We've not removed that. In fact, in some respects, I'm slightly concerned that people are going to be a bit too gory. There was a puzzle in the original game where you had to jump across gaps with bits of meat falling down.
Oh, yeah.
And there's always there's implication that there was big meat saws underneath the bottom of the screen. Well, you can now see those meat saws spinning and chewing the meat up.
Oh, cool.
So I'm slightly concerned that might be a little bit too graphic. So we might have to move them down a little bit again, because you can actually see these things spinning. And they're the big shark teeth kind of saw blades on them, which rip the meat apart and it flies out off the screen and stuff, and this looks gruesome, So we have to possibly address that down a little bit, make it a bit less violent and gory. But we're definitely not removing any of the gore stuff. Other concern people had was the voice isn't the same. Well, technically it is the same. Lorne Lanning's pretty much always been Abe. He didn't voice all lines for Abe in the original game, but that was 20 years ago. People's voices change. We're doing the same audio effects to that voice, but that voice has still got more gravelly over a 20-year period. Yeah. And we feel that fans would prefer Lorne doing the voices and us getting a sound alike to the original game. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong with that. So, Lorne is doing the voices. He's done all the Slig voices.
That's amazing that he's doing them again. That's especially he's 15 years on, 18 years on or something. Yeah.
He literally turned 48 last week. So it's when he did that, he was 30. Think about it. So it's a while ago. Probably old now. He's probably 28, 29 when he did the voice originally, because he did the voices about a year or so before the game came out. So think about it.
Yeah.
People get older. Voices change. And my voice isn't what it was 10 years ago. Never mind 20 years ago. So it's that's not changed. So people say, it's not even the original voice. What are you doing? Well, what are you on about? It is the original voice. It's not going to be much different, for Christ's sakes. So there's that side of things. The gameplay itself, we're not changing. The only thing we've changed is some of the puzzles have had to be changed through necessity rather than through we wanted to change them.
Yeah.
Example I wanted to show at Eurogamer, we didn't get a chance to because we were out of time, was in the original version of the game, at that point within the main bit of the gameplay we showed at Eurogamer, Abe has to creep through, tiptoe through not to wake up the sleeping Slig.
Right, yeah.
Because obviously the screen scrolls now, there's no flip screen, get off screen to reset the puzzle, come back on again. What we've had to do is, we've had to do kind of like a Metal Gear thing, where you basically, the Sligs actually time out now. So if a Slig starts off sleeping, and you wake him up, he will time out and go back to sleep again if you don't make a noise for a while.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, that's the kind of little things we've had to change. But it's not a wholesale change or redesign. It's just thinking further along. What would you do in reality? If you hide behind something or keep really still and don't move for 10, 20 seconds, you'll stop beating up that poor Madakan down there and then go back to where it was and start snoring again. So that's all in there.
What about the secret areas and stuff? Because I remember there's lots of hidden platforms behind barrels and stuff like that.
Well, here's the thing, is right. This is a little known fact. The original secret areas came out of the fact is that they'd finished the environments earlier than they were planning on doing so. So the art guys spent some time creating these extra screens and puzzles just to put more Madakans in them. So that's what the secret areas came out of before. So to some degree, we're going to stick to that concept of, if we have time, we're going to put some more in. But it's still going to be 99 Madakans to rescue at launch. There will be a good few hidden screens.
Cool.
They might not be identical to original games, because some of them before were just stupidly fiendish. But some might be harder. We want to try and play around with it and use those screens the same way the original Inhabitants did in 94, 95, 96, and just play around with, we've got a bit of time, what can we do in these areas to make it a little bit more fun? Because whilst we want to make the game itself as true to the original game as we possibly can do, we also want to have a bit of fun with it and throw some surprises in there.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing we're going to do. We're going to change around some of the secret areas a little bit, possibly. And again, some of the puzzles we've had to modify later in the game, because people kind of got fed up and bored of the puzzles all the way throughout, and the exact same puzzle over and over again. So we're going to switch up a little bit and have puzzles in the same places and still audio recognition puzzles, but maybe have it slightly reversed. So you have to copy, as well as copying, you have to have almost like a conversation thing back and forth to some of the things like that. So we're going to play with it a little bit. We're not going to be introducing any more new characters into it. As somebody suggested on Facebook, saying, I hear you're going to put some more different characters in there. Well, no. You might see some Easter eggs or nods to some of the other Oddworld games, like, I don't know, you might see some puzzles bounce around in a background platform or something. I don't know, but it's not going to be anything to break the story or break the game. So it's going to be as close to Abe's Odyssey as it could do, but while still being a bit more creative with the environments now. Because one of the things I always want to do with this game, because I think I've said in Eurogamer, this has been a project I've been wanting to do for about 5 years now.
Wow.
And never thought Lauren would ever get around to doing it, because a mutual friend of mine, Lauren, said for years, Lauren doesn't do games anymore, he's fed up right now, wants to do something else. And I said, well, he should remake Abe's Odyssey, it was a great game, imagine it in 2.5D and 3D. Yeah, he's not interested right now. So it's always been in my mind to do this. So the fact that we're actually doing it ourselves is great. So but one of the things I want to do is to do the Ridge Racer thing, where you think Ridge Racer was just a track game, but what set it apart was the fact that around the track you had things happening, you had planes flying overhead, you had all that kind of stuff, diggers digging up and things, you just had stuff happening. So what we're doing with this is the same thing, whereas the original game in Rupture Farms you maybe had a barrel moving down a conveyor belt. In our version, I think you maybe saw it in Eurogamer footage, you've got conveyor belts going into the distance in one bit with barrels all over them, I'm going to play around with some ideas that some of the cutscenes had, where you'd see the mines, the hovering mines just flying around in CG sequences in the background. We'll have some of them flying around in the background too, that sort of stuff, which are not part of the gameplay, they're just there in the background to spot, And it's that kind of stuff. It's basically, as someone put it, it's like sprinkling glitter on an old game, isn't it? Yeah, okay.
But these are the sort of remakes that are great, though. When you actually go in and you bring it up to date. Whereas, things like the HD upgrades are fine because the old games don't look that bad, and they play they play well enough. So having an HD upgrade of something from last gen, I'm perfectly fine with. But
I've been rather critical publicly about some of these HD remakes, I have to say.
Some of them are not so good.
I think a lot of them are down to, let's just throw a quick few $1,000s to this and make some more money from people who are tinted glasses. Yeah, no.
I think Shadow of the Colossus was great because it was playable now.
Do you think? Because I actually was really critical of Shadow and Ico.
On the current gen?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was shocked it was 30 frames and not 60.
Yeah. I was a bit disappointed with that.
I was also shocked they got away with some TRC issues, which most publishers or developers have got hammered for. There's something in TRC that says that in this generation, circle is back, X is confirm, and you can't not do that.
Yeah.
You get slapped on the head for doing that. But both Colossus and Ico, it's triangle for back, which is a PS2ism.
Yeah, that's an old PS2 one.
And I'm like, well, why? It would have taken them 2 minutes to put a circle button graphic in there and change the code from a triangle to circle. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, that's true, actually.
It's silly little things like that. I don't understand why some of the menus stretched them like we do in our widescreen telly on PS2 days.
Yeah.
I find it really bemusing that Blue Point didn't do a better job of that. I really do.
Yeah, that is weird because their Metal Gear Solid HDs are fantastic on the PS3, but the Vita versions are not as good. But
I haven't seen the Vita versions, I have to say. I was tempted to buy it, but I thought, no, I'm leaving that generation back now.
Yeah.
I had to play in the Ike. I thought, I don't want to ruin it anymore for me, because I saw the Prince of Persia ones and went, oh, ouch.
They're terrible.
So Resident Evil and went,
Splinter Cell's terrible as well.
Resident Evil 4, my God.
Yeah, they've butchered
what were they thinking?
That's not a good port.
I actually think the best ones of the PS2 to current generation were the PSP God of War games.
Oh, yeah, they did a great job at making those 1080p.
The Ready Dawn guys.
They are
fantastic.
Geniuses.
Yeah, but I think the other HD remakes kind of want to slap her in the face with a kipper, frankly.
I really like the Sly trilogy because like those graphics are so. They were like in the PS2 days. Those cell shaded graphics on a standard CRT screen,
great, yeah,
and not that they were great. But then having those now in like an HD, they look like a cartoon, and it's beautiful. And it's like that I can live with. And the Jack trilogy is quite good as well.
Yeah. I actually said to somebody I'd love to have had a stab at remaking Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2.
Do you know what? I was thinking the other day that if Sony, and this is something I actually said to a colleague at work, we were talking about Jak and Daxter, and I said, I reckon Just Add Water could do a good job with a Jak and Daxter game. Just both like based on like your work with strangers and stuff like that. I was thinking, that could work, because the one that was made on the PSP that's not Naughty Dog was not very good. So
yeah, I'm not seen that one actually, but I thought, because Crash Bandicoot 1 and 2 were fucking great games. And they came out at the same time as Abe did. And they're equally as playable, but I can see them in my head now, done natively in today's generation, but still the 1996, 97 gameplay.
Yeah.
None of this, oh, look, we're multi-platform now, let's add a really complex story in there with lots of cutscenes, just for the sake of it. No. Put the gameplay back where it was and don't fuck with it.
Yeah. That's just it, isn't it? I mean, when you look at it's tragic to see how far like Spyro and Crash have fallen.
I don't want to look at Spyro. As soon as I saw that stupid thing from Activision Skylanders, I was like, oh my God, what have you done?
They've fallen so far. These two mascots, which were they were part of a cornerstone of a platform at one point, and now they're just left to languish. It's sad because they were such fun games because they were just so whimsical.
Yes,
and that was what made them fun.
That's weird enough because the Lego Lord of the Rings. This is related, believe it or not. But Lego Lord of the Rings, there's a couple of bits in it when you're running towards a camera being chased by boulders, and I thought straight back to Crash Bandicoot.
Oh yeah,
genius. I mean, it's simple as the gameplay, but on the original PS1, it's It probably would have played it now, it probably wouldn't be, but at the time it felt so responsive and so immediate that it worked really, really well.
Yeah,
Simple.
It does. Yeah. It's still good today. Especially the second one.
Yes.
That's really good
Crash
even
2
today.
great,
Yeah, love it. So yeah, speaking of classic games, do you play any others now, or do you try and leave that in the past? Or?
Yeah, it's embarrassing, but I'm playing GTA Vice City again at the moment. I know it's not a classic, but it's still last generation.
Yeah, I've played that just for the soundtrack recently. So
yeah, and PS1 games. I kid you not, I can look around the office every day and I'm seeing people playing Abe's Odyssey because we're using that as the blueprint for the new version of the game.
So
all the levels are based on the same layouts as the original game. So we've literally got all the screens printed off, and the guys import them to back of Maya, and then build new levels on top of them so they match up perfectly, platform sizes and positions and things. So all the blockouts are done to the original versions, which is nice, because in a minute the guy's doing Scrabania, and it's to see all the deserts and all the rock come into view and stuff, and the monuments and all the rope start to hang off of everything. It's like, wow, it looks the same, but it doesn't look the same because it's 3D and it's real time. Wow, so that's cool. Nice. But so, in terms of what I'm playing myself, I recently got a couple of games, and mainly because I don't have a computer at home anymore. So at home I've only got a PS3, an iPad Mini, and just because I've done enough with it, having a computer at home all the time and being distracted away from the living room and family time by doing a computer setup in a different room in the house.
Yeah.
So I made an oath about 3-4 years ago to have no more computers at home anymore. In fact, since I got an iPad 2 actually, was to leave the laptop at the office now. I don't even bring the laptop home anymore. It's just literally email on the iPad and stuff, and games on the PS3. Be it PS1 or PS2 games. PS1 games I got installed are Abe's Odyssey and Exodus, Oddworld, which is a fantastic game. I love to bits.
That is one of my favourite games on the PS1. Have you seen how much that's worth though for the proper game?
No, the box one's over 100 quid, isn't it? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's shocking. I can't believe I gave that away once.
I think the wife loves playing Pandemonium 2, so I'm going to have a copy of that on there as well.
Oh yeah,
that's probably it. Yeah, older games than that, not much. To be honest with you, at all, just because of time, really. I got a 6-year-old now, and his time consists of I want to play Lego. Which one? Lord of the Rings. Okay. And then when he goes to sleep, it's like, I need to put up some sex and violence now. Right, GTA.
my eldest, I put him through. He's 11. I've got a son who's nearly 1 as well. But the eldest, I put him through proper classical gaming training. So I started him off basically with the classics, like Super Mario Brothers, and I was like, okay, this is Super Mario Brothers. You will play this. And I was like, okay, this is Tetris. Okay, now you will learn to do geometry with Tetris.
Elliot's played Tetris as well. He got it for a while and got quite good at it. And then went, I'm bored now, Dad. What?
But I was thinking to myself when I was doing it, I was like, this is either really cruel or I'm a cool dad, but I don't know which it is. So
probably both. But that's good. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that.
But my wife is saying that for our youngest, that he's not to play video games at all. So
have you had the problem with the whole screen time business with the 11-year-old?
Yeah, that's why I'm a Vita gamer mostly now. So as I don't get the PS3 anymore. So.
Well, I mean, Elliot, our lad, he whinges and cries and fits, not proper fits, but he just has a right tantrum if he hasn't had more than 4 hours screen time a day. He's like, no, you'll have an hour screen time. No, I want more. No. And it's like, we give him choice now. He either plays a little bit in the morning before he goes to school or a little bit in the evening before he goes to bed, not both. Oh, why not? I want to play my DS with me. No. Can I play at restaurants? Can I play with your phone, Dad? No, but I want to play Angry Birds. Oh God, here you go.
That's the thing with my eldest. He asked for TV in his room and stuff, and I'm like, no, No, that's just a bad idea because then you'll end up with the PlayStation up there, and no.
Yeah, that's definitely not happening.
Definitely. He's happy he has his 3DS, and he'll just use that now. So, but then he's just like, well, I'd rather play like Ratchet and Clank. Can I play that? And it's like, oh no, because then that's my time. Get out of my room.
Yeah, definitely.
So, another thing quickly about the future as well. Do you think that you'd ever do maybe an iOS version or something of like Marvin again, like Marvin's Marvelous Adventures?
Oh God, I don't know, because weirdly I spoke to Florian about 6 years ago when he was working at Factor 5 in the States, and I said to him, look, do you mind if I have a bash at doing a port of Marvin to something else? Yeah, go for it. And he's going to send me all the code and assets. I never did do in the end. But I thought about it, just for a laugh. Because it'd be kind of cool to do on iOS. The problem we have is that, and this is what's quite humorous actually, is that all the contracts that Hewson and 21st Century signed, all the IP was bought up by Rebellion for £1.
Oh, right.
In the receivers when 21st Century went tits up. However, there was a clause in some of the original Hewson contracts that said if the company should ever go belly up, all rights and IP revert back to their original holders, in this case, Steve Turner and Andrew Brayberg. So, on the Wii and the Virtual Console, you could play the C64 versions of Iridium and Paradroid.
Yeah.
And we didn't know who did it. I mean, then discovering that it was Rebellion who put them up there because they assumed they owned all the IP. But they don't. They don't own some of that IP. That IP is reverted back to Andrew Braybrick and Steve Turner again, who then sold it on as lock, stock and barrel of all the Graph Gold IP to Jester Interactive. And when Jester went belly up, one guy in Wales bought everything of theirs, which included all the Graph Gold stuff.
Oh, no.
So last time I heard there's a legal tussle between Rebellion and this guy owning the Jester stuff to prove who owned what. But because Rebellion literally went to Grant Thornton and said, we'll buy everything for £1, here's your £1, and they went, okay, here's all the boxes of stuff, there's no contracts in there. So as far as Rebellion were concerned, I don't know if it's still the case, but as far as they were concerned at the time, they thought they owned everything.
Right.
Because at one point Joel was actually going to do a Paradroid remake.
Oh, that's
3D
cool.
Paradroid remake. And we decided against it for two reasons. One is, I didn't want to pay $100,000, which was the guy wanted for the IP for Paradroid, because one, it wasn't worth it, and two, the people who remember Paradroid want Paradroid. They don't want a remake. It's like like Paradroid 90 was to Paradroid, completely different, and expanded beyond belief. So we kind of felt that, well, we're only paying for the name because it's a robot game, but taking over and advancing yourself, but there's no actual. Well, no, there is obviously the original design in there for the original game, but the people who played the original game, the C64, probably aren't in enough numbers today to warrant paying $100,000 for a license name.
Yeah.
So we binned the idea. If you want, I can send you some of the screenshots we had of it.
Oh,
that'd be a laugh.
Yeah.
None of the stuff was textured yet. It's all early stuff, but it looked kind of cool. I like the visual effect or visual style we had for it, just for a laugh. But it showed how far we got with it. We had lots of droids done. We had a few layouts put together. We had the takeover screen done, the hacking screen done, and it was all working in 3D. It was all 3D. We actually did it in PS3, weirdly, and we had it. It must have been 2009 we were doing it, maybe early 2010, something like that. Yeah. And we were using Sony's Fire engine to do it.
Right, yeah. Their own engine, yeah.
Yeah, which was just turned to version 2 at the time. So it was a long time ago, because we're version 3 point something now. And we just binned it, because it's not worth the hassle, and plus that Stranger came along. So it must have been 2010, yeah. Stranger came along and said, look, we can pay you money for doing this. Okay. So maybe we might go back to something based upon the idea at some point in the future. I don't know. Time will tell. But as far as Marvin goes, all I did was produce it for 21st Century. So I've got no rights to the IP at all. And, if I spoke to Rebellion about it, they'd probably say, well, yeah, you pay this much for it. I don't do that.
No, that's true. Okay, and we've just had Water going forward. Is there more outside of the Oddworld that we can expect as well from you guys?
There's a couple of things we're working on, but I can't tell you what they are yet.
Oh, we tease. Yeah.
Tease. Well, actually, there's one thing we're working on completely in spare time at the moment. And it's another thing we would love to do, which I don't think we're going to look at it for another year yet before we even get time or resources to do it, because we're on Abe now until launch. 99% of the office is working on Abe to launch. Then the next Oddworld game, and then the next. So we've got 3 or 4 Oddworld projects bouncing around the office, including Abe. So
that's a lot.
Yeah, so nothing's. Our projects will be staggered. So when one project's coming to an end, the next project will start up. But as well as I do, that art always finishes before code finishes on projects. So the art guy's moving on to the next project probably in July.
Oh, that's cool.
Early August time. Well, probably August time actually. So we're a while away yet from doing the next stuff, but we want that one part's being separate from Oddworld, i.e. not owned by Oddworld, is that if we do want a little break from it, we can have 3 or 4 people working on something, a side project, which is nice, or even one person working on a side project. It's kind of nice that way.
So, I think I've asked everything I've wanted to ask. Adam, do you have anything?
Yeah, I think everything's been covered.
Good, I'm glad.
Cool.
I need a drink,
Yeah, it's been quite a long one.
Yeah.
But it's just brilliant hearing, all the old stories, from
I do
early years.
I do prattle on a little bit sometimes about the old days, because there were the days.
It's weird because I found myself actually listening to you rather than trying to think about the questions I was going to ask. So I was like, okay, so because I was getting drawn into it. I was like, oh yeah, and then I was like, oh yeah, great. I need to actually ask something, don't I? But no, thank you very much for your time.
Indeed. Thank you.
And
Not a problem.
I can't wait for this to go out because it'll be exciting for us to actually get this out there as well. So yeah, and good luck with the games.
Thank you.
And okay, so that's brilliant. Thanks very much. And we'll be back again next week, hopefully with another episode. So that's goodbye from me. Goodbye from Adam.
Yep. Thank you again.
And goodbye from me as well, I guess.
Yep.
Thanks for having me, guys. It's been a privilege.
Thank you.
An honour being on your little show, and nattering with you for 3 hours.
It's been brilliant.